Music. It's not just part of our daily lives, it's part of our wrestling fandom as well, and it has been for decades. That's where this show comes in. Music of the Mat, the podcast devoted exclusively to the music of pro wrestling, hosted by Andrew Rich. Hey, that's me. Each episode delivers a different topic with a variety of great guests, fun conversations, musical analysis, and of course, a heartfelt pun or two. New episodes drop every other Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast app of choice. Check out Music of the Mat only on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
Hey kids, do you like wrestling? Well, we like wrestling too. We are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Myself and Chris Novembrino kind of doing a lazy river of wrestling criticism, going through the news and whatever happened in stateside television wrestling. And also, you know what? Sometimes we just like to watch old stuff and talk about that too. Love for you to give us a listen. If you haven't already, we are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
So, how does it feel when you play Roll Up to Win with Tim Hortons? Buy a hot or cold beverage using the Tim's app and find out. Roll in the app for a chance to win prizes ranging from free coffee and donuts to a Universal Orlando resort vacation or a sweet car. Oh, don't forget the TV. And this year, every roll is a shot at a $1,000 daily giveaway drawing for two $500 prizes. Roll up to win and get treated by Tim's. No purchase necessary. Account registration required. 50 U.S. and D.C. 18 plus entered by 4/2/23. See rules at rolluptowin.com for free entry and full details. Void in Florida and where prohibited.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
What do you guys want to talk about?
Read the words that are written in I believe them, I believe. It's a shameful fate, lost her head. A careless man who could wind up dead. You wear your sin like it's some kind of pride. Too many lies, too many lies. Oh.
And we are live on the Flagship podcast. I am Rich, and this is our St. Patrick's Day Spectacular. And there's no Joe Lanza this week. There wasn't a Joe Lanza last year, I should say, for our St. Patrick's Day Spectacular. I don't know if I called it a St. Patrick's Day Spectacular, but I'm calling it this time because we're on the eve of St. Patrick's Day. But this is an annual tradition where Joe Lanza does not do the show on March Madness opening Thursday. It's not technically opening day because they have the first four stuff or whatever, but it is the official Thursday of March Madness. So Joe does not do that. He is watching college basketball all day. So just remember that next time people make fun of me for missing a show for a vacation or something like that. Just remember that this man takes off every single March Madness Thursday to watch college basketball all day. But that is fine because we have a very, very suitable replacement for Joe this week. And it is Pro Wrestling Torch's Alan 4L. Alan, how are you?
Kind of start too.
Well, I should say top of the morning to you.
Le féile párig sunna duit is mahlum gochan na curiachtis bralum an bratlong ach Cawil an Kenta Kobashi na Gneas Cawil Joseph Olanza.
Yes, I agree with everything you said, Alan. I agree 100%. Thank you for the compliment, I think.
Well, it was actually Joseph Olanza who I was referring to.
Oh yeah, screw that guy.
The Kenta Kobashi na Gneas. So yes, your flagship listeners, or should I say your Bratlong listeners, didn't know the Irish for flagship. I had to look that one up.
Oh, is that so? It's like, is that like an actual word or what? Because I imagined like, yeah, obviously ships, flagship or whatever. It had to be. That wasn't just like you put flag and ship together. Was that there's an actual Gaelic word for flagship?
And you do this, Rich, and most Americans do. So I'm going to forgive you.
Please do. Please correct
Irish.
Me.
It's the language is Irish.
Okay, thank you.
We don't say Gaelic. It's just you Yanks is my
look. I know how you guys celebrate. I know how you guys celebrate St. Patty's Day with two T's, obviously. Pattys. I'm drinking green beer right now. the favorite of the land of Ireland. I'm drinking green Miller Lights that has been dyed green. I'm wearing a sparkly 4-leaf clover headband right now as well, and I'm just head to toe in green. So exactly how you guys do it.
Shamrock shake.
Got my Shamrock Shake. All bodies of water near me have been dyed green. There was a puddle in my backyard. I made sure that was green. So yeah, I got it. I got it covered, Alan. Do not worry. I know how to celebrate St. Patty's Day, Pattys, just as you in Ireland do. So
Having just come out of Germany, where I was the weekend, where I saw many things on many menus, or I forgot the word for menu after learning it over the weekend. But many bratwursts and whatnot. I see the word bratlong for Flagship, and I was just like, really? That's the Irish for Flagship? Bratlong?
Bratlong.
Yes, it is.
Bratlong.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we should have coordinated that. We did. I have the Shamrock as our graphic that's just going back and forth between green and orange in a very ridiculous manner. I made the thumbnail that features Becky Lynch during her Riverdance phase, the very brief NXT run of Riverdance, so that did that. So I'm being told that I need to pump you up a little bit in the audio. Believe it or not, you are quieter than Joanne. So my normal Flagship setup, or what? Sorry, what was the Irish word for Flagship?
Bratlong.
Bratlong. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna write that down right now.
The Gohana no Curiocht, Voices of Wrestling, Bratlong.
Bratlong. Okay, all right. I'm just gonna call it that from now on. Flagship's kind of dumb. So
there's wrestling's a hard one too. There's a few different words you could go with for wrestling, but I went with Curiocht. So Gohana, not Curiocht, Voices of Wrestling, and I was told to be quiet because someone is going to go to bed now in a few minutes, so they asked me not to be shouting downstairs. And they also wanted to say hi to Rich, Michelle, and their lovely dogs.
Oh, incredible. We'll tell whoever that is in your house that wants to go to bed that we also said hello. So we will I will bump your audio up a little bit, and you can you can rest assured that you are now louder on our feed. So, of course,
I hope everyone did hear my lovely.
Oh, they heard. I think they just wanted you to be a little louder. I have Joe at like -5 in my, so I'm at 0 every week. Joe's at -5. I just got you up to 0 now too. So you and I can be at 0, and I think that's probably fine.
I will say that since the age of 18, after 12 years of 14 years of learning that language in school, this past 10 minutes was the most I've used it since the age of 18.
Yeah, that's so. Is that do you feel like that's a misnomer that like people think that it is spoken, or does everybody know that it's like not?
Well, there's certain parts of Ireland, the Gaeltacht areas of Ireland, where they speak Irish, and there's some schools even like here in my sister went to an all Irish school, so like all the subjects are taught through Irish. She just did it to be like awkward. My poor mom
to be cool. It sounds cool, actually.
My poor mom had to sit beside her with an Irish English dictionary, like helping her with her maths homework. So I felt so bad for my parents. But my parents like didn't speak much Irish at all, and they're pretty much none. And my sister just decided she was going to be different and go to an Irish school. But there's certain places, parts of the country that keep it alive. A big thing for teenagers in the summer is that they go to Irish college around the age of like 12, 13, 14 kind of years. So you basically go off and you get immersed in the Irish language in like a summer camp kind of a deal, and it's kind of partly designed to have you learn the language, and it's partly designed for you to get acquainted with the opposite sex.
There it is. Yeah, that's what. Yeah. Now you're talking Joe Lance's language. I can get him in now if you call him in. He could take a few minutes from the
Kenta Kobashi of Irish college.
Incredible, but so this we wanted to have it. Honestly, you are not on because it is the eve of St. Patrick's Day, but it did kind of work out well. Or I was like, you know what? Hey, you know who'd be a good person to bring on? Alan, I don't think you've ever filled in on the Flagship before. We've obviously done numerous audio shows, the yearly Joe Gagney Christmas draft that we do. Joe and I go over to the PW Torch with you guys and do that. I'm trying to remember if you've ever filled on an actual proper Flagship, though. I don't believe so.
I am normally, this is a festive time of year. I'm I'm being a bit freer, but I'm normally strictly paywall content for you guys at the Patreon, at the Flagship Patreon. I'm not like some kind of Joe Gagney type, just willing to whore himself out for nothing. I just felt
coming in hot. I like, yes.
Poor Joe Gagney.
Yeah, he's listening at home now, just like, oh.
I could have gone with like Andrew Rich or something. He doesn't have the tenure and veteran status to Joe.
Right, he's not the original wrestling podcaster like Joe Gagney is, who does not use that enough. He needs to start using that more, by the way.
Like, if I had said that about Andrew Rich, like, Andrew, you'd have to just take it on the chin, you know? Whereas Joe Gagney, he can fire back.
He should fire back, yeah.
He should, because Joe Gagney, he is a podcast senior of mine. He was doing this before me, so I feel terrible now, and any bollocking, as we say here in Ireland, that Joe Gagney wants to give me, I will take on the chin. So sorry, Joe.
Yeah,
Mr.
but
Gagney.
but of course,
don't burn me.
all this Irish stuff, not you, like that Irish stuff in terms of like the over the top, like WCW is the leprechaun in the bottom of our thumbnail, is all firmly tongue planted in cheek, by the way, if you do not know it mostly to get Alan upset about how horrible Americans celebrate this holiday, and
that would work if I cared about it myself.
Yeah, but you don't care, which is good. Yeah, so it's all,
it's like to me, it's just a day off work, or before that, school. So yeah,
right.
And it's also a thing that you were told. Do you guys have Lent over there? Is Lent?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so like, especially like
I do not adhere to it because I'm a heathen, but go on.
Yeah, I didn't even adhere to it when it was like kind of thrust upon me in like Catholic school and as a kid. But like Lent was like a big thing. It was like, oh, you have to give up chocolate, you have to give up crisps, whatever. And but the thing was, you were always allowed cheese on Lent for St. Patrick's Day, which I'm not sure the linkage there or why
it
that
sounds very Catholic. Yeah, if there's nothing that's more purely Catholic than like it's kind of even with, you know, Jesus dying. You know, you can not eat chocolate for a month. What about St. Patrick's Day? I mean, on that day you can eat chocolate, of course. Like
I think it's probably designed because parents would take their kids to the most miserable thing on earth, which is the St. Patrick's Day parade in Dublin City, and the kids would very quickly lose all their enthusiasm because they can't see anything, like I did. And then an easy way to shut them up and get them to stop complaining is to just shove a load of chocolate down their throat. So
right.
I think the parents came up with this addendum to the Lent clause, St. Patrick's Day parade, not great. Never really been too into the St. Patrick's Day festivities here in Ireland. I did. I think because it was one of the years during the pandemic. I just remember, like, I think it was on RT's website or something, they put up like a load of footage of old St. Patrick's Day parades and stuff. And I just spent like 2 hours like watching all this news footage of like people being interviewed at like the 1987 St. Patrick's Day parade and stuff. It's kind of fascinating. That was
like probably the one time you were like, you know what would be good? Like me hanging out with a bunch of people. You know what I mean? Like the one time you've ever been like, you know what was fun? Going back and like, because I did that too. There was a lot of times during, you know, the pandemic. So I'm like, man, I miss the good old days of just being around a bunch of people. But then like now we're back and I'm like, man, this sucks. Like I liked it better when I wasn't around a bunch of people all the time. This is so much better. But there was some dark times where you were like, you know what would be really cool to just walk around and drink and yell and not have to worry about anything. But now that you can do that again, it's like, who's got time for that? I got wrestling to watch. So
it was such a big thing in the early stage of the pandemic when they canceled St. Patrick's Day. It was like this. It was probably around like, I don't know, the 10th or 11th that it was still like potentially could happen, and people were like, well, they're not going to cancel St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, we had a similar thing too. So I went to there's one town near me that does a St. Patrick's Day parade like the first week of March, which is way too early. It makes you, because now I've been like, because I usually go, I didn't go this year because it's a fun time and it's like not, you know, I don't get too crazy, but it's a fun little time and it's cool to go because it's like, it's like early March and you're like, I'll drink outside and watch a parade. Who cares? Like, so I usually do it, but it starts like the first week of March. March all the time. It was like March 4th this year or whatever, and it's usually that first week. So I remember that one still happened, but that was during a weird touch and go period of the beginning of the pandemic, where it was like, and we were around and like we went. And we were like, yeah, should we be doing this? And everyone's like, whatever. You know what? It's fine. Who cares? You know, let's do it. And then all the other ones in Chicago was supposed to happen the next week. But then between the one that we went to and the next week, they canceled everything. And it was like a complete disaster. Like, it was the beginning of like, they're taking away everything. Like, what are we going to have left or whatever? So, that was I'm sure it was that way in Ireland, too. That was like the unbelievable, like, well, now we're ruining tradition. Like, what are we going to do? Oh my God, this is ridiculous. So it all kind of in hindsight seems pretty ridiculous given, not necessarily like canceling it, like I'm saying, but like the hysteria over, oh my God. And then like people being like, and I'm sure it'll be like a couple weeks, then everything will be back to normal. And no, not really. It took a lot longer than that.
There was like the stages, like the levels of, oh my God, they can't possibly do this.
Yeah. Like, are they allowed to cancel a parade? There's no way. Yeah. They can't do this to us.
Then it was like, oh, well, they canceled that, but they can't cancel this.
Right. 4th of July. Like for us, it was like 4th of July. It's like, well, by 4th of July, everything's going to be fine. And then that all got canceled. And they were like, this is ridiculous. This can't keep happening.
Like I remember thinking like really early stage when like there was talk of some restrictions needing to come in like just globally. And I was like, well, like this was like purely like people maybe not being able to fly in or out of China. And I was thinking to myself, this is insane. What if someone has like business in China?
They have to do a business meeting.
Yeah, like how was that?
How are we supposed to conduct international business without flying to China? This is ridiculous.
Oh God. So yeah, very, very different.
Innocence.
I've never got COVID, thankfully, knock on wood. And 3 years ago, early March, the night before we were going to go to Holland first and then on to Germany for 16 Carat, and we decided not to go on that trip. It was I missed that 16 Carat, and 3 years later I went 16 Carat, as we'll talk about later.
Yeah,
and sure enough, I don't have COVID, but literally everyone I was around all weekend have COVID.
Wow.
I hope they're all doing well. But I've been talking to some of them, but I hope everyone's doing well.
And you're still good. Are you just like not testing yourself ever, or
I've
you're like, well, I don't have it. I've never tested.
I've tested myself 3 times this week. I had to go to the dentist today, so I tested myself twice before going to the dentist this morning, and I feel really good. And I rang up the dentist and said, look, I've tested myself twice and I feel good. Are you okay with me coming in? They're like, yeah, like no one else does this. No one else
sure.
is considerate.
Right. Yeah, no one else cares at all.
So, I thankfully avoided. Sarah got it once, and I avoided it when she had it. And I don't know, maybe I have gotten a lot of boosters, so either they're working or I'm just naturally immune.
You're just the Iron Man. There you go. So Alan, non-COVID Alan there. We'll talk about 16 Carat a little bit later.
Now,
you're definitely gonna get it like the next week. So you can't brag. You cannot brag about it. That's that just opens you up for eventually getting it. So. But that's that. We'll talk about 16 Carat a little bit later and ask, is it safe to go back in the water of European wrestling? We'll discuss that in a bit. You would know firsthand, obviously living in there and being part of the, a major part of the scene for many, many years. So we'll discuss that a little bit later. But a bunch of other stuff that we're going to do in this week's show, a little less in terms of like intensive this week in news type of stuff that we usually do on the Flagship. We're going to have a little bit of fun this week, talk about some big picture topics. We are going to discuss, and this was presented to me from you, and I think it's a really cool idea, and it was fun to kind of research this. Our top 10 wrestlers of the year so far. So obviously it's
Power
March
rankings, baby.
Yeah, it's March 16th. It's very early in the year, but God, this is good content. You got to do this if you can do it. So yeah, we're power ranking our top 10 wrestlers of the year so far. It's been a great year for wrestling, by the way. There's been a lot of really, really good stuff. By and large, I don't think wrestling is good. Like if you said, hey, is wrestling good in 2023? I don't know if I would immediately say yes, but there's been a lot of good wrestling. Does that make sense to you?
I think it's a heck of a lot better than it's been since 2020. Like Japan, I hold up my hands. I'm not ready to say I was all the way wrong, but I am definitely wronger than I thought I would be when I was saying a couple of months ago or at different stages. I would talk about it. I wrote a PW Torch newsletter column basically titled "Has Japanese Wrestling Lost Its Voice?" because I just kind of thought that the restrictions being so heavy for so long and the new generation of fans kind of coming in and an old generation that was more boisterous and loud and everything leaving, and they had already started to leave in sort of the years leading up to COVID. I just was thinking we would be seeing a much quieter, different kind of Japanese wrestling going forward. I didn't really see it having the crowd enthusiasm, noise-wise, atmosphere-wise, that we were used to for so many years and decades.
Yeah, and you were definitely justified by that, because when did you release that piece? Because I know, forget the exact time that you did, but there was this weird period where they did say, hey, restrictions are open or you guys can start cheering again. And I remember watching one of those shows, and I forget what promotion it was or what company it was, but like people were kind of cheering, but most of the people were still clapping. And I'm like, oh no, are these people are just going to be like, nah, I'd rather just clap. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. We're fine, just clap. Because there was a few people that were like, yeah, but it wasn't like, you know what I mean? It wasn't boisterous.
I think it was because they were so kind of like gradual with, okay, well, you can cheer, but then there's this stipulation.
You can't chant. You can't sing.
Yeah, like and they would have like and there was the capacity restrictions as well.
Yeah.
And it was just like I was really just feeling disheartened about it. And don't get me wrong, this ain't 1984 All Japan crowds we got going on at the moment, but they're a lot more energetic and atmospheric than I expected they would be. And it was pretty much instantaneous with some of the early shows this year. It really feels like the turn of January into February was where we really started to see it. Like I think of, there was a late show with this was early January with Lindemann versus Kaito Ishida, which had this rockin' hot Osaka crowd that I just loved that match you and Joe talked about.
Oh yeah, that crowd was fucking great.
Yeah, then there was that Dragon Gate show at Korakuen in this was really heartening to me because Dragon Gate has, of course, just brought so many new guys through, and we hadn't kind of gotten to hear how crowds would respond to these guys.
Yeah, are these guys actually over or not?
Yeah, we had seen a level of like overness in terms of all this, like there'd be Dragon Dia merch and there'd be all like Jackie Funky Kamei fan-made signs and all these different things you'd see, but you didn't really know what the crowds chant for these people. And like it was pretty much like in the opening match, I forget who it was the crowd, it was one of the new guys, and the crowd just started this huge chant for him, and I was like, whoa. And then it was like Genki came out and he tried to get a HAGE chant going, and it was like kind of like no reaction, and they started chanting for like Jackie Funky Kamei or whoever it was instead. And I was like, wow, there's been like a huge it's not just the wrestlers we've seen turn over in Dragon Gate, but the crowds.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 years. Too. Yeah, that's a long time. 3 years is a very, very long time.
And the crowd really reacted really well to everything on that show the whole way through. It was really a really fun show. That gave me a lot of enthusiasm. And then All Japan just really turning things around.
Yeah. They've made the biggest jump, I'd say, in the early part of this year of like, oh, crowds are back. Kento will not stand for the crowds not cheering, so like he makes sure that they just go.
He's amazing.
He'll come. I love the come out. Nah, that's not enough. I'm gonna come out again. All right, now, nah, still not enough. Now you better fucking cheer for me. And he'll stay out there. He's like, this song can replay 100 times, man. I'm not going out until you guys are going nuts for me. And it doesn't take a whole lot of convincing, but yeah, he gets that crowd just going. Absolutely. Yeah, they have probably been, All Japan has been for me the biggest jump between, because I was really kind of done with them. Like they got real boring during the clap crowds, and I was like, it's over, it's done. All Japan is nothing. They're forget it, we're done. And yeah, this January to where we are today, I've been watching a lot of All Japan, and we'll talk about it a little bit when we do our top 10 wrestlers, of course, for an aforementioned man that is obviously in my top 10. But yeah, it was like, oh, okay, this company, it does feel like it has life again. And hell, I've even watched like 0-1, which 0-1 01 pandemic 01 was a real and it's still depressing. Don't get me wrong. 01 is still very depressing, but it feels familiar again because it's like they'll go out there and they work their tight, 10-minute matches where they beat the fuck out of each other, but crowds are making noise again. It feels right again in the best ways possible. So that has really turned it around for me of Japan, because I was pretty much ready to just say, you know what, I'm going to watch New Japan, check in with Dragon Gate every so often, but pretty much the rest of Japan, I'm just going to hand wave. But it's been very nice. This first part of the year has been like, oh, okay. It's still pretty damn fun. Like you said, they're not 1984 crowds, and we're not quite 10 years ago in Japan, but man, it is a night and day difference from where we were just a year ago.
It's a great start to 2023. It's a better start than I could have imagined. And then that's just Japan. We've got this insane turnaround of CMLL that you guys have covered really well. AEW, I absolutely go along with what you guys typically say, that in the hyper criticism of AEW, people lose sight of just how much good stuff there is. And it's like they have had some incredible stuff so far in 2023. I think it's been their best period of in ring that I have, in my opinion, so far. So I'm really enjoying AEW, and I don't watch WWE. Haven't watched them in years, so that really it makes no difference to me. I'm the one thing that I'm not into, that I tried during the pandemic, and it was the US Indies, they gave maybe about 2 weeks of not having normal stuff, and then they were back to normal.
Yes, very quickly.
So we say during the pandemic, but it was pretty much normal. Normal crowds, no restrictions.
Yeah, there was pretty much the couple of GCW shows from the Lightning, whatever the heck that place was called, the Electric Lounge or something like that. And then, basically by July, they were like, we're back. It's just I went to a live show in June or July, and I was just I was there wearing a mask because it was still July of 2020. So I'm like, I don't know. But most other people were just whatever, business as usual. And I'm oh man.
I say during the pandemic, but that's just to reference it as opposed to implying any kind of time reference it, as opposed to implying any differences or restrictions. It was business as usual.
Right.
And I tried to follow along. I tried to get into different promotions, but a combination of the production just letting me down time and time again with different promotions, certain crowds of certain promotions just being terrible, commentary being terrible, some there is some diamonds in the rough match wise, but there's a lot of stuff about this, the way the wrestlers, fans, promotions, everyone approach wrestling on the US Indies these days. Just, I don't know if it's passed me by or if it's just not meeting a standard that I would hold to, but it ain't for me. I'm sorry. I've tried, and I said I need to take a couple of months. I'll give it, as we'll talk about later, WrestleMania Weekend. I'll give it a fair shake at WrestleMania Weekend. But I don't. We'll see how that goes.
We will certainly discuss that later, and I do not think that's going to to steer you. Just letting you know, there's some okay stuff at this WrestleMania Weekend, but yeah, by and large, I do not think this Mania Weekend is going to turn Alan back into an American Indie fan. But I echo a lot of your thoughts on the American Indies. I've tried. I've probably tried longer than most people have as well, and it's just if I wasn't doing this, there's no chance I would watch any of them for the most part. But there is some good stuff, and there's some stuff that I like, but it's so inconsistent, and you just don't know. There's just not those reliable couple of companies that you could say, all right, I'm going to watch. And there's West Coast Pro, I think, does a really good job. I usually like most of the action wrestling stuff that's on IWTV, and there's a few other promotions here and there. AAW here in Chicago, I still obviously watch most of their stuff. Dreamwave has come back in the Chicagoland area, and I will kind of watch a lot of their stuff and enjoy it. But yeah, it's the days of knowing that there's a couple of promotions that you just have to watch. I mean, nothing is have to watch anymore. It's if you got time, you can watch this and this and this or whatever. But
and let's be honest, Rich, everyone's so cringe about it. They're
you're preaching to the choir on that one.
Just the way wrestlers, promotions, people involved in indie wrestling just show their ass publicly, whether it's social media or whatever. Well, it's pretty much only. It's only
Twitter, basically.
Yeah, like it's so cringe. and I can't shake this feeling that like 95% of wrestlers on the indies don't actually watch wrestling. They might watch some WWE or whatever, the occasional bit of AEW, and if they do, it's probably like half-hearted. But I don't think it's not like, say, the 2000s where you had Chris Hero and like 20 wrestlers all shoved into a room together watching like hours and upon hours of Michinoku Pro, or whatnot, just like studying their craft. Like I feel it's really evident how much that's missing in independent wrestling. And I never want to be the old guy yelling at cloud. I will just step away before that ever becomes me. But it's it's very apparent that like a lot of wrestlers care more about kind of their social media engagement and what they kind of get back in terms of that than actually kind of going out and getting reactions and having good matches that tell a story from start to finish, building programs. Like this is something you guys have talked about many times, how few really good beginning to end programs, feuds, rivalries, things like that we've had on the indies. It's you don't get much of it. I'm sure there's probably some indie promotions or wrestlers who might be listening to this who'd be like, well, we did X, Y, and Z. I don't deny it. There probably has been, but it's so lost in the noise.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, because there's so much that it's so hard to wade through it all to get to. And when you try, you're getting hit with like, here's this branch smacking you in the face of awful commentary. Here's this bird flying into your head of this like terrible production. Here's this awful gimmicky match that is like a wolf coming up and biting you on the leg. I don't know why I'm walking through a jungle.
I like this indie wrestling jungle you got that also features wolves, a jungle with wolves. I enjoy this. Yeah, you got snakes, you got wolves. It's a very unique. No, and then there's the other thing too, that like a lot of times there's been a few people that have tried to do stories, but we're still in like the everyone like wrestlers and wrestling promotions are my friend because I engage with them on social media. So you get somebody who tries to do like a legit story, or that tries to be a heel or tries to do something, and then you get like the pushback of like, yikes, like this isn't what we want, or that sort of stuff. And like not all of it's been good, but there's been people that have tried to do certain gimmicks or whatever, but then have had to kind of walk them back almost immediately because fans are just like, what is going on? Why is he being like this? And it's like, I'm trying to be a heel, but you know what? I'll apologize and whatever. You know what I mean? Like they try to go to a level, but it's hard to do that level anymore, because then that guy that's cutting X promo on Y person and hates, quote unquote, hates them for whatever reason, then that person's on social media and on Twitter 10 minutes later talking to fans and retweeting stuff or whatever. So you just lose that illusion. So it's just like you said, a lot of it is being done on social media, and it's just a lot easier to retweet a bunch of GIFs of people doing cool moves and go, awesome. Like, and that's what it's become. It's just like, people retweet. People, the match graphics go out. People do the "shut up and take my money" GIF guy thing, and then a cool move happens on some random show, and everybody retweets it, and that's it. That's what it's all about. Where the days of like current talents, I'm not going to name names, but current talents that are in AEW right now in big spots, asking Joe and I for Osaka Pro, links so that he could study, guys from, Osaka Pro. Like those days are gone. Like I'm positive
it's funny that Joe is such a big fan of that wrestler, considering that wrestler specifically was wanting to get matches of a wrestler that has a tail.
Right. Yes, you know exactly. I know. I'm glad you know exactly who I'm talking about, because we probably then asked you, Alan, send us Osaka Pro tape for this guy. So I'm glad that you know it. But those days are probably done of those guys huddling into like a hotel room, like 8 deep, to go, watch Osaka Pro tapes to study certain wrestlers. Like, those days are long gone.
Chris Hero's apartment or house or whatever it was called, like, they had a name for it. Like, it was something like the wrestling study house or something like that, or there was like some kind of jokey name it had, and yeah, they'd literally all be crammed up like because it would be like when he was because was he Chikara first or IWA? I can't remember. I think it was whichever one he was based in first, whether it was Pennsylvania working in the Chikara school or Indiana working for IWA. He would have like all the trainees, and many of them who would go on to have like great careers and stuff like that, and or successful independent careers. Like they you would see the learnings that they had coming true because they didn't have all these sort of distractions. But I mean, look, I don't want to be the
right
person.
that era is probably done and it's probably never coming back, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's like it's a new era. I'm not going to be the person where I'm like Dave Meltzer kind of attitude of, well, I can't get left behind. No, I must stay hip to, like, I am perfectly fine with being left behind. If this is the direction things are going, it's not for me. If it's successful and everyone's happy, great. But I'm just being honest, it's not for me. And I don't begrudge fans, wrestlers, promotions, if they're successful, if they're happy, and it's going in the direction they wanted to go, more power to them. I just don't see huge evidence that, there's a real long-term future being built with a lot of stuff. So yeah, but anyway, that's that rant.
For sure. Yeah, we'll probably do it again a little bit later because we are going to go over this year's WrestleMania Weekend a little bit, and then also do some WrestleMania Weekend memories as well. I'm doing that series on flagshippatreon.com where I'm writing about classic, WrestleMania Weekend memories and moments or whatever. I did a few last year. I did the Dragon Gate 6-man. I did Shingo versus Johnny Gargano, and then just a little bit ago, a couple days prior to the recording of this and the live stream of this, I did about Will Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr. from Evolve 58, which again got me in all the feels of like, man, WrestleMania Weekend used to be so cool. But
I'm sick of you and Joe trying to tout this WrestleMania 2016 week as being the greatest, because I'm bitter because that was the one I missed during my 8 years of going to WrestleMania Weekend.
Well, I didn't go either. I debated it. I debated it, and I was like, nah, because that was actually honestly the perfect time for me to go to a WrestleMania Weekend. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves because we're going to talk about this later, but that was one that I was like, you know what? I can go to this. There's nothing stopping me. Like at that point in my life, we had moved out of our apartment because we were going to try to buy a house. So we were living with my in-laws. So I had no reason to not, I could have easily gone. The reason I didn't go is because I was living with my in-laws to save money to buy a house. So the idea of hey honey, instead of, saving money this month, I'm just going to go to WrestleMania Weekend and hang out with all my friends. See ya.
I got to pay Gabe and Sal for the super fan tickets.
Yeah,
for,
right.
Which all the shows.
Yeah. Exactly. So but then I was you know what? And I remember talking to Joe and talking to other people, maybe even talking to you as well. And you're like, nah, I can't go there, whatever. And Joe being like, yeah, sure. Come on down. Whatever, we'll figure it out. And eventually, it was probably 3 weeks prior. I was like, nah, I can't do this. We're saving money. I'm just going to watch it at home. And then I watched Evolve 58 and I watched that Zack Sabre Jr. versus Will Ospreay. And I was just like, motherfucker, I should be there. That should be me there. And then the whole weekend fucking rocked. And it was just God damn it. That could have been me, but well.
Oh, I was at Cork and Hall, so I can't complain.
Oh, yeah, shut up. Yeah. You're crying tears about that. But yeah, we'll get to all of WrestleMania Weekend. We'll talk about our memories of WrestleMania Weekend. You obviously have a very, very long history, very storied history with WrestleMania Weekend. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But you did mention this at the top, and yeah, we're not. And when we got on the call here, you were like, well, obviously this topic is going to be third hour, end of the show, if we have time. No. This is a whole new show. This is the St. Patrick's Day Spectacular. You're Alan Forel of PW Torch, Pro Wrestling Paradise. No, we're throwing out the format sheet. I'm doing Hogan Bischoff or Vince Russo style, and I'm ripping it up, whatever that format sheet was, and saying, fuck it. Alan, we are talking first hour about the 30th anniversary of Michinoku Pro, because yes, this week is officially the 30th anniversary of the formation of Michinoku Pro Wrestling in Japan. There is an great article right now at voiceswrestling.com, written by Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast here on the Voice Wrestling Podcast Network, talking about the history of Michinoku Pro, how it got founded, why it existed, how it was revolutionary, and then also some of the best matches in Michinoku Pro history. So got to go over to voiceswrestling.com if you're listening to this and go and watch some of those matches if you were not familiar with the legacy or anything about Michinoku Pro. If you have no idea about Michinoku Pro, you have to read that article. You have to watch those matches. If you were aware of it but forgot about it, go watch them again because they're all fucking incredible. They're incredible matches. And Case just did a great job breaking down the history of Michinoku Pro, why it's so important, and then obviously how it all fell apart. And it's still around now, but you know how it never reached the highs it would once reach in the 90s due to a multitude of reasons or whatever. But yeah, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of Michinoku Pro, and we're doing it in the first hour, Alan. We are not waiting until the third hour.
Yeah, we don't have Stinky Lanza holding down Lucharesu like he loves to do and just shoehorning it into a 5-minute window in the third hour. Rich, I can feel you itching to come on here talking about Dragon Gate some weeks, and or even maybe a little Ryuku Pro. I know you're a big fan.
I love the
I can just feel you
the cave shows
to lead a bit of what's the one that happens like Seafood Pro Wrestling?
Oh, the Seafood Pro Wrestling. Yeah, I love Seafood Pro Wrestling. The two times I've watched it.
I can feel you wanting to have that as the lead topic some weeks, and Lanza, he's just overruling you. It's his Lucharesu bias. We all know it exists. It was very evident last week where he called Dragon Gate the worst promotion ever. He hates it.
I do recall that exact quote. Yes.
Yeah. So
paraphrasing a little bit, but yeah, essentially, Dragon Gate sucks. It's the worst promotion on earth.
Yeah, so that was what I heard. So, but yeah, it's,
in no uncertain terms,
we are. I'm gonna even steal his gimmick and do the clap. Get into it.
Get into it. Michi Pro. Let's talk Michi Pro.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Great anniversary.
Article,
yeah.
Case's article, amazing. Just a great job. Like, he was really on the ball with that. I'll be honest, it slipped my mind that this was the anniversary. And
can I tell you the best part about Case, and it exemplifies Case in the best way possible? We have a Slack, a Voice of Wrestling Slack or whatever, and he posted last week and said, "Hey, is anybody doing anything else for the Michinoku Pro 30th anniversary? Because I'm going to write a big article." And I was like, "Case." You know goddamn well, nobody knew it was Michinoku Pro's 30th anniversary, but you and Mike. And no, nobody else is writing anything large, like a 10,000 word piece about the 30th anniversary of Michinoku Pro. No, it's all yours, Case. You got it. Like, don't worry about it. I love it. Just exemplifies Case in the best way possible of just making sure he didn't step on any toes with the 30th anniversary of Michinoku Pro content that filled our website this week.
A tear rolled down my eye when I saw it because I was like, I was proud. I was like a proud dad, because I wrote a big piece on Michinoku Pro for their 20th anniversary for Fighting Spirit magazine 10 years ago in 2013. And I, as I said, did not even think about the anniversary this year. So I feel I have had a good influence on Case, that he was on the ball and that he took care of that 10 years later. He has stepped into my shoes here, and I'm very proud of the work he did. I thought his article was absolutely tremendous. I really liked it because I went back and I sent Case my one that I wrote after I read his today, and I ended up going back and reading it myself because I actually got to through the Brian Elliott connections, I was able to speak to Great Sasuke himself through a translator for some quotes, and so I was like, that'll be interesting to go back and read. And so I went back and read it, and after reading Cases, they actually serve as a real nice compliment because I didn't really get to go into specific matches very much in mine, and Case really does a great job of highlighting. Like, when I was looking through he really maps out the the beginning to end of the golden period of Michinoku Pro so well by using the matches he selected. It's a really great timeline. He digs deep into those matches, what made them special, and I didn't really get to do that in my article. So I think it's really, really cool. He did a fantastic job. It's made me want to spend St. Paddy's weekend just going and watching a load of Michinoku Pro. It's one of the most, I would say, just how about this? I'll use a phrase that was used this week in a very, very different context, but it is one of the most perfectly imperfect wrestling promotions I think there's ever been. It's so much of what made it unique, so much about what could be kind of talked about as a flaw in it actually serves to be part of its beauty. And it was such a trend-setting promotion. It was such a risk-taking promotion. And it's very much in the... It's built like the man himself, Great Sasuke, as just... When you think of Great Sasuke, you think of risk-taking, both with his body and with everything he does in life, and trying crazy things physically, trying crazy things artistically, and trying crazy things from a business perspective, which he did as a 23-year-old, going out and deciding to have Japan's first ever, essentially regional wrestling promotion. And it's, if you're just used to Tokyo-based wrestling of the 80s and first couple of years in the 90s, to then go and see these shows in these small town gymnasiums in northern Japan where all the fans are sitting on the floor, it's just so different. They're sitting on the floor on their cushions, and everyone's got these little the first time I got like a load of Michinoku Pro DVDs, I was like, oh, the audio's really fucked up on this. What's the deal with the audio? And then I realized it was, they had these little, I don't even know what you'd call them, but these things they shot into the air, these kind of noise things the fans would shoot into the air, like kind of like balloon things, and the air would go out of them, and they'd create this squeaking kind of noise, and it would like last.
Yeah, what the hell are those called? There's got to be a name for them, but I have no earthly idea what I would call them, or even how to begin to look up what those things are called.
But all I know is
people are nodding. The Michinoku Pro viewers are nodding, but the rest of us are either confused or, we're confused. We don't know what the hell they're called. But yeah, if you know, you know.
Yeah, and it's just like, I've never seen that in any other wrestling promotion. Gabe Sapolsky tried with his Thunder Sticks. Do you remember the Thunder Sticks?
Oh, of course I remember the Thunder Sticks. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now this is just this cool, just such a different atmosphere. And even for me, like someone who was only going down the Michinoku Pro rabbit hole in maybe, I'd say 2006, 2007 is when I was like sinking my teeth into it after being initially exposed to it in 97 when they showed up on Raw, Sasuke and Taka. But like I didn't, as a 12-year-old, I was like, oh, that was amazing. I'm going to import loads of
right. Let me go to my local Japanese marketplace and see if they have any tapes, or if they can import Michinoku Pro tapes for me. Yeah.
Not many of them in Dublin in 1997. So I knew of the promotion Michinoku Pro. I would read about it in Paris Slam occasionally, but it was probably not until the mid-2000s that I actually started to watch a load of it. And it was just, even then, so different from anything else I had seen. And this is like stuff from 12 years earlier that in 2007 is shocking to me. And I'm like, wow, it was amazing. It really is like, if you think of like the birth of the Dragon Gate style, and really the Dragon Gate style has so influenced a lot of the modern, like, hell, if you watch AEW, like you'll see like guys like the Young Bucks, Top Flight, all these guys doing these things, or like someone like a Ricochet, and in WWE, like all these guys that came through in the last 10, 15 years, like they were influenced by Dragon Gate, be it having gone on tour directly with them, like an El Generico or a Bucks. And so like that style has permeated through the industry, and it does go back before Michinoku Pro, as case lays out. It goes back to the UWF. It goes back to Gran Hamada as kind of the father of this with Satoru Sayama in a way, but Sayama also has his kind of shoot style side of things, but Gran Hamada was this pure lucha resu guy. He was this guy. He was a Japanese wrestler who made his name in Mexico, had most of his early career in Mexico, and he was like the godfather of all this. But it was Michinoku Pro where it really started to take hold and leave an impact. And yeah, it's and all those guys that kind of broke in under Hamada, like a Dick Togo and Delphin and Sasuke, once they started to once they'd had a couple of years under their belt and they went from, oh my God, these guys are super green but really promising, exciting wrestlers, to, okay, these are some of the best wrestlers in the world. And it was when they had their own promotion that they did that, because very quickly from like 93, by 95, they are some, like if you did the top 30 wrestlers in the world in 1995, you've probably got a healthy representation of Michinoku Pro guys.
Yeah, it's for people that have never seen Michinoku Pro or just trying to properly describe like how influential they are. I think the best way that you can figure out how influential they are is watch some of those matches. And the one that I would definitely recommend watching, and I think Casey even lays out that this is like the best Michinoku Pro match ever, and it's not the one that I think everybody knows. I think most people, and by everybody I mean like the deep wrestling fans or whatever, not everybody. Your random wrestling fan on the street has no idea about the October 10th 1996 Michinoku Pro match, but it's that December 16th 1996 one, the Kaientai DX versus Michinoku Pro match. Is, I believe it's 5-man. Yeah, I think it's 10-man. I think it's a 10-man tag on December 16th, 1996. I think just watch that match and you'll get it. You'll just understand immediately from watching that match, especially if you're watching a company like AEW right now. You'll see, oh my God, yes, I see what this is. I see why this is as influential as this is, because it's 1996. And I honestly, today, I watched the main event of last week of this week's Dynamite, the trios, the three-way trios match or whatever. And then I watched this match almost immediately back to back, and I was just like, oh my God, like it's like the same match. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, it's that match. And it's like, this one is done in 1996. Like, this is being done on a completely different planet. Like, Joe and I talked about that last week on the Flagship, where the thing with Dragon Gate, when you first watched Dragon Gate, when I first was engaged with Dragon Gate, it was like, this is wrestling from a completely different planet. Like, what is this? There's just nothing like this. I've never seen anything like this. There's nothing that even resembles this. I'm not getting this from anywhere else. This is wrestling on a different planet. That's what Michinoku Pro was in the mid 90s. And you mentioned as well, like, you watch the 93 stuff and you're like, all right, yeah, there's some fun stuff going on here. By 95, you're absolutely right. These guys are like, oh my God, these guys are getting good. And then you go watch 1996. You either watch that October match in 1996. You're free to watch that match. That match is great. You should definitely do that. But I would definitely recommend the Hikaru Star Lanes one from December 16th, 1996. That is it. That is like the Michinoku Pro match. And if you want to understand why Michinoku Pro was what it was and why it's so influential, watch that match and then go watch, the Dynamite main event from this week, and you'll see, oh my God, yeah, these guys are still doing this style in 2023. Like, this is it. That is the style, and these are the guys that really created it in a lot of ways and made it, so influential that it gave way to, like you said, gave way to Dragon Gate, which gave way to Dragon Gate USA, which gave way to a lot of American wrestling fans finding that out. It gave way to the 2006, the Dragon Gate, 6-man in 2006 on the Ring of Honor shows. Like, it all led to that. And
like, Chikara was basically tried to be the American version.
Yeah.
Of
yeah.
Pro, with the gimmicks and the masks and whatnot. You mentioned being like wrestling from another planet. Have you heard the Ricky Choshu quote from backstage at Super J-Cup 94, apparently?
Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard that.
It was after Taka's match, where Taka does a bunch of crazy dives against Eddie Guerrero, and apparently Ricky Choshu turns to someone and just goes, what is this guy, some kind of space alien or something?
Yeah, right. That's perfect. I never knew he said that, but yeah, that's what it is. And you can tell that this crowd is just like, what the fuck are we watching here? This is insane. This is crazy. And I think that is the lasting legacy of Michinoku Pro is what they were able to do in that era, and what they were able to do to influence what all wrestling, a lot of wrestling that you see today, like you said, to Chikara, to Dragon Gate, to Dragon Gate USA, to Ring of Honor, to the Indies, to now to AEW and stuff. It can, and like you said, you can chart it back to Grand Hamada, you can chart it back to UWA, and you can chart it back, or UWF rather, you can chart it back to Sayama and Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask if you really want, but like it really feels like it becomes fully formed, and that style and that idea, just what it is, happens with Michinoku Pro. And like you said, what's cool about Michinoku Pro more than anything is that they took the ultimate risk and said, you know what, yeah, we can run Tokyo and probably do okay. But hey, there's this whole half of this country that doesn't get any wrestling ever. Let's just go there and let's base our company there.
And then they got buzz from the cool hardcores in Tokyo, and then they wanted to see them come down. Like the first time they did a Korakuen show, it was a big deal, and then when they did the Sumo Hall show, it was a big deal. But if I could stress one thing to people, because you're naturally, as we have been so far, when you talk about Michinoku Pro and its legacy, you're naturally inclined to talk about the innovation, the creativity, the speed, the synchronicity that these guys had with this style. That, like, you rightly compared to the Dynamite main event this week, Rich, but to me, like, a big difference between those is on the Dynamite main event, it's like a bunch of guys who, obviously this was the first version of this match they've all had with each other, and they probably had to plan this out step by step and just be like, okay, this is a lot going on here. Daniel Garcia hasn't worked with this person, Chris Jericho hasn't worked with this person, and oh, by the way, he's like 50 whatever, and all these like different things. They had to probably be very careful with planning that, and they achieved a hell of a match, a hell of a performance. But that December 16, 1996 match, you felt like that was just these guys going on autopilot. Like they could have done it in their sleep.
Yeah.
They were all just so in sync. And that just comes with the fact they had all been working together for so many years. In maybe it wasn't this exact combination of five versus that exact combination of five, but God, like everyone in the match had wrestled everyone else so many times. But you do have this natural inclination to talk about it just in terms of that style. But what I want people to realize about Michinoku Pro is the reason that they were able to be so successful throughout the 90s and to be homesteading in this area of northern Japan where they're in the same kind of region. If they were just going out and doing these highly synchronized, highly athletic matches over and over, like the novelty would wear off after, a couple of months, a couple of years. But the crowds were so, especially the local crowds, were so into the story of the different rivalries that were there. And then when they get Kaientai Deluxe, Kaientai DX hot as heels and have like the Michinoku Pro Sekigon army as the led by Great Sasuke, and they have this feud, and it's like, it's intense. And guys, a babyface like Grand Naniwa, who's like obviously he passed away tragically at a very young age, but he was like still a teenager during this like rise of like the classic Michinoku Pro. Like you've got like a guy like Hamada in there in his mid 40s, but you've got Naniwa on the other end of the spectrum who's like 18.
Yeah, he died. If people don't know, he died. He was 33 when he died, and that was in 2010. People probably don't know because he was obviously wearing the mask a lot of the time. And I remember I was taken aback when he passed away, and I was like, oh, I wonder how at 33, like what? Like, oh my God, the guy was like
I didn't realize either.
Yeah, he was a teenager when he was like great.
They were so into him because of that, because of the gimmick. He was a crab. He did the crab spots, but he was a fighting babyface, and he had some of the best babyface performances. Like you would get some intense reactions at these shows because of that inherent story that they had with the faces and the heels. And if I was to recommend one match, the case listed that really shows that it's actually. It happens on a Battle Art show in early '97. and Michinoku Pro and Battle Arts were by 97 they were really kind of working together as these two kind of independent promotions of a similar size that had two completely different styles, but they were both kind of, with Ikeda and Ishikawa on one side and Sasuke on the other side, you had these kind of creative guys that basically found ways to meld their promotions together and do some work with each other. And like the Michinoku Pro stuff would appear on Battle Arts and would actually fit in really well, and the Battle Arts guys would appear in Michinoku Pro and fit in really well. So, but they have a Michinoku Pro showcase match essentially on this 97 Battle Arts show, and it is a wild, heated, bloody brawl, and I really strongly recommend people check that out. It is so class. I had never seen it before. It was a couple of years ago. Didn't even know it existed, and I think Case discovered it around the same time. And I remember us talking about it and be like, "This match is insane! How do more people?"
Yeah, I actually haven't seen that one. I'll have to watch that today.
You will love it, Rich. It is wild. So it's so many great matches like that. Another one is, again, harping on Naniwa, but the Fukuman Mask League that they would have. This is 1995 version, basically like a singles round robin, but the deal was whoever the worst two performers in the tournament were at the bottom of the table, at the end of the tournament, they would have to face off in a match where the loser would lose their mask. And it was Naniwa versus a wrestler called there's a million different spellings of his name, a million different versions of his name that have been translated and mistranslated over times. I think commonly it's been accepted he was Gorgon Cross, and Gorgon Cross looked very similar in outfit to one Mr. JL, not Joe Lanza, but WCW Mr.
Yes,
JL.
yeah.
It was, of course, Jerry Lynn. So they would bring in like different guys and just put a mask on them and give them a random name for this Fukuman tournament. So yeah, they have this Jerry Lynn versus Naniwa match, and the heat of that match is just insane. It might be my favorite Jerry Lynn match. It might be the best Jerry Lynn match. I remember I got to meet Jerry Lynn one time in my life.
Of course, you brought up this match. I love it.
Rev Pro show. Yeah, I'm like you and talking to Christopher Daniels, but I got a better response.
I hope you did.
The notoriously friendly Jerry Lynn was much more. It was at a Rev Pro show in a small little sports hall in Sittingbourne, England, and he was just being really nice, talking to people after the show. And I just went up and I was like, "Hi, Jerry! It's really just a pleasure to see you live. Just a real honor. I've been a fan for a long time." And maybe he was thinking, "Oh, what an Egypt this."
Yeah, he's gonna. Here comes. He's gonna talk about our Rob Van Dam in like 12 seconds here. So let's get on with it. All right.
So he might have been, or maybe he was just like, maybe he is genuine. Jerry Lynn does strike me as someone who might generally just be a sweetheart, and he seemed to be like really happy to talk. And then when I told him, I was like, I love this match you had at Michinoku Pro. I was wondering if you had any memories of it. And he was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe wow." And he was like really taken back, and he was like, like I can honestly feel like the shakes of the building because the crowd were all stomping their feet, and like it was like this energy rushing through me, and I was like, yeah, that's what it comes off like on tape. And he was like, it was kind of akin to my famous time when Noah did the UK and the infamous Alan Forel Kenta Kobashi meeting where I go up to him with because we were allowed to get two things signed, and I had printed off these screenshots from VLC player of like my favorite moments of. So it was like a screenshot of the end of the May 25th, 92 Pan Am's match. Him and Kikuchi getting their hands raised and like on like real glossy printer paper. And so like I handed it over to him and Kobashi's just staring at it, just in a trance, and he's like, "Oh, Sendai 92, Doug Furnace, so strong." And I was like,
Yes.
I was just people who were in the queue. My good pal Jamesy, like he was in the queue. We didn't even know each other then, but he was in the queue, like 2 people behind me, and he was like, he just always talks about that was like the greatest thing ever. My best friend Doohan was like right there with me. He always talks about it. It's just the most insane thing he's ever seen. The amount of people that have brought that up to me over the years, like, "Oh, I saw you meet Kobashi."
It's like a memorable moment. Yeah. Well, was he quickly just signing everybody else's thing and going, like, was he, did you get like a special, or was he doing like platitudes to everybody?
Okay, so I feel really bad about this because Kobashi was, and I was like a 22-year-old student at this point, and I was, my first few times like traveling over to England for wrestling shows, I was such a cheapskate. I just didn't like. I was like doing like tennis coaching and stuff. And I had money like in addition to going to college. Like, and I didn't spend a lot of money. I was just like buying Ring of Honor DVDs. You know, like I wasn't out like partying every night. So I had money. I could have like just, you know, put a bit extra out there, but I was a cheapskate. So I went to this meet and greet in this show with like fucking no money on me, like pretty much. So I was like, well, I don't need to drink anything. I've got my bottle of water here in my bag, so I don't need to have any money on me. And so like a meet and greet was already paid for and all that. So but when in the queue for Kobashi, it was like he had all these Kenta Kobashi purple, they were really cool foam fingers that like were you basically had to buy to kind of get so it was like an extra thing. Like the wrestlers weren't supposed to be doing this because the fans had paid for the meet and greet, but it was like Kenta Kobashi and Noah.
Yeah, so no one's going to tell him no. Yeah, right. Who's going to tell him, hey, you can't sell those gimmicks here, pal? Yeah,
they got Noah office got them specially made up, but they were super cool. They were only £5. Like, but I didn't have £5 on me. Maybe I had some in the hotel, but I didn't have it on me. And I was like, oh, this could be so awkward. It's like everyone else buying their thing, getting their photo of Kobashi with the giant foam hand. It wasn't even a foam. It wasn't even a finger. It was a chopping hand. That's what it was.
Oh, that's an awesome piece of merch, man.
Yeah, it really was. So I was feeling bad, but like everyone else was going up, buying their thing. He was giving them a big smile, taking a photo. And then I got away with it because he was so distracted by our conversation about Doug Furnace being so strong that he just kept shaking my hand and smiling, and we took a photo, and then I was like totally happy with my experience.
Incredible.
And just walked on, and there was like all the wrestlers had like a little like UK student. It was pretty like, I don't know, young Mark Haskins or something like that was like with each organizing the queue or whatever. So like whoever it was, whatever 90-year-old trainee was like, started to go, you have to buy, and I was just walking away at that point.
Right, smiling from grinning from ear to ear, like.
Yeah, so I felt bad about that, and I also now in hindsight I just feel bad that I was like a cheapskate, just didn't get that foam finger because that would have been cool. But at least I have the meeting that I can remember. But yeah, Kenta Kobashi and Jerry Lynn, 2 nice wrestlers to meet. And Jerry Lynn, he enjoyed his match with Grand Nanny Watt to take this all back after that ridiculous tangent. I feel like anytime I do a podcast, I bring up the Kenta Kobashi story, and since this is my first time on a free Flagship show, I think it is worthwhile.
No, it's an incredible story. Yeah, it's the best one. Yeah, people do bring that up all the time. That's not even you. Like people that I know that know you bring up the story of Doug Furnace very strong, which is just an awesome thing. We're being told in the chat room that Jerry Lynn is in fact a sweetheart. Other people saying they've met him at different shows, and he is indeed. Because he's from Minnesota, he's nice, or he's just an actual nice human being. So you did not just get a rare moment of Jerry Lynn niceness. It looks like he's genuinely a super nice guy. But yeah, so you mentioned when you first got into Michinoku Pro, and I think that's kind of the same time that I did as well. And even going back to, like you said, that 1997 thing where all of a sudden, that's when I'm really starting to get into wrestling. That's when I'm really starting to be like, this thing, I care about this a lot. Like I'd watched for years before that, but it was kind of like, it's on when I'm watching TV. Okay, I'll watch it. But it wasn't like appointment television. By 1997, it had become appointment television. And that's the first time that I really became aware of what the hell was going on in Japan was Sasuke and Taka. And it was the Canadian Stampede. I remember renting that tape and just being like, what in the world is this? And obviously it's 1996, 1997. And like you're saying, I was, 11 or 10 or whatever. It's like, I wasn't going to like have my mom drive me to a Japanese, supermarket, which I don't even know if we had any around then, and be like, I must acquire these tapes. Like, I didn't even think of it. I was like, whoa, this is going on in Japan. That's cool. And then just kind of went on with my life or whatever. But I always remember thinking about that match and thinking about Taka Michinoku and wondering, man, I wonder what those guys, I mean, those guys are great. And they would talk about Michinoku Pro, the stars of Michinoku Pro. And I'm like, oh man, that sounds like a really cool promotion. And then I remember when the early days of the internet, the very, very early days of the internet of like discussing that match and being like, that was one of my favorite matches. I love that match, the Canadian Stampede, great Sasuke versus Taka Michinoku. And I remember, God only knows who this person is, but thank God that person came at the time that they came. I remember talking about that match and someone's like, yeah, you want to see real Michinoku Pro wrestling? Kind of like a back alley thing. And this guy sent me this weird link or like a way to download it or whatever. You know what I mean? He's like, opens up his sport code. He's like, you want the real Michinoku Pro? And I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah. And it was like,
want some heroin as well there?
Right. Yeah, right. And he was probably a sex pest and I didn't know. I was like, yeah, sure. He's like, send me your address or why don't you just come meet me? I have Michinoku Pro. I'm like, yeah, sounds great to me. How could this go wrong? I'll be there.
Was it Mike Quackenbush?
All right, well, that's been the flagship. So, Alan, thank you so much for coming on. Oh, dear God. It may have, honestly, it may have been. Yeah. But anyway.
He worked some Chicago indies.
I'm sure it was. Yeah. But, I remember this guy sending me some scuzzy link or something like that, or some weird way to download it on SoulSeek or Kazaa or something like that. And then I remember the matches that I was able to see was that October 10th, 1996 one. The one that Case mentions in the article is probably the most famous Michinoku Pro match. Like that was on every single time. And then later, doing tape trading or whatever, this fucking match was on every tape you would ever get of like best matches in Japan or like, Japan high flyers or whatever. And that, like, cause that's all I knew. Like for me, for a long time, I just thought Japanese wrestling was like high flyers. Cause that's all that I had really seen by, watching 1996, 97, 98 WWF and WCW or whatever. The guys I knew from Japan were like all the high flyers. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't
Ultimo Dragon.
Yeah, there wasn't really like, later on in life, I was like, oh, these guys also just beat the fuck out of each other. I didn't really know that at the time. Like I just thought it was Sasuke and Taka and Ultimo and Liger.
I literally remember the first time my cousin showed me a music video of Kobashi versus Misawa, and I was like, oh, they've got some burly gentlemen in Japan as well.
Right, exactly.
Look at them with their tights covering up their belly buttons.
Yeah,
their big chests.
Yeah, I just thought it was like mask guys doing cool like topes, and I was like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, same.
That works for me. And then so obviously that opened up a whole new world. But I remember watching that match and just being like, whoa, hold on a minute, and that really kind of changed a lot of my wrestling thoughts for a long, long time thereafter. And it was like that. It always. Michinoku Pro will always kind of have a soft spot in my mind. Like same thing with like Hayabusa. Hayabusa was another guy that like in those early days, people would send me stuff or I would like seek it out. And that's a guy I watched because I was like, whoa, deathmatch wrestling. Like again, I still had no concept for like Misawa and Kobashi and Taue and the pillars and all that. I had no idea about any of that stuff. I only knew about the high flyers and the deathmatch stuff. But I'll always have a soft spot for Hayabusa and for Michinoku Pro for that very reason. Is like that I'll always remember being my first real introduction to true Japanese wrestling through the WWF, which again also speaks to the influence that Michinoku Pro had, that they were global. They were a global brand because even if I just watched WWF, I knew what Michinoku Pro was. If I just watched ECW, I knew what Michinoku Pro was because they would pop up there a bunch of times as well and do the same thing that they would do everywhere else. So they would come in, they would do their match, and it would blow everybody away. And people would go, what the fuck is this? This is, again, from a different universe. Great Sasuke and Taka Michinoku being plopped into 1997 WWF is a different planet. Like these are, like you said, what was the Ricky Choshu, like space aliens or whatever? It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
like Taka would run up,
is he, some kind of
jump onto the top rope, and then do like, flying cross body. And you're like, what the fuck is that? Like, excuse me? Like, how do you do that?
Do you remember the first time you saw Taka do, I just always know it as the Taka dive. Generico would do it back when he was a lot smaller, but it's the one where the guy is like, your opponent's on the floor, you're facing to the outside, you springboard as if you're going to like dive down across body, but he turns, so he's turning as he's springboarding, and then he does a moonsault. It's just the most, like, the first time I saw that I was like, how is that even possible? It's like the first time I saw one of those Valiente dives that like loads of people do now, but like where you kick off the middle rope and go over the top.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
It was like the first time I saw that, I was like, how is that possible? And but the Taka dive, when I saw that originally, is and then anytime Generico would do it in a big match, I'd always like, well, tacking on a half a star there, he did the Taka
Right,
dive.
that's gonna work for me. So
That's all I need.
yeah, no, it's just, Michinoku Pro, the legacy of them is I mean, it's seen in a lot of today's wrestling, but I'd really implore people this week, this week of all weeks, it's also laid out perfectly for you. If you just want to, I think there's like 6 or 7 matches in Case's article that pretty much brings you to, hey, here's Hamada, and here's a very, very young Ultimo Dragon before he's even Ultimo Dragon. Here's kind of the forefathers of this style. Here's where the style starts to get adopted, where these guys, like you said, take the ultimate risk and just say, you know what, let's base our promotion in Northern Japan. Like, fuck it. We'll see what happens. And it ends up resulting in like a decade of that company just being tremendous. And then obviously, like most things in wrestling, and especially in Japanese wrestling, guys are not always going to get along. People are going to see, not see eye to eye, and then it's going to break apart. And then you get Osaka Pro, which is also really good as well. Osaka Pro has a lot of really, really cool stuff. But from that point forward, it never feels quite the same, because you have Osaka Pro, you have Michinoku Pro, you have both companies and then they're kind of like weirdly working together a little bit because they're very similar styles, but there's still like weird tension. And it just kind of watered down the product to the point where, now both promotions are still around, but they're just not anywhere near what they are anymore. Michinoku Pro will pop up once a year, with the Great Space War at this point, but it's just, it's not what it was before. And I enjoy some stuff that I watch from them, when I do watch the Great Space War or whatever, but yeah, they're just not as relevant in the grand scheme.
It's hard to judge on it, because like they could be doing, like Gerard put in the chat about them doing a big house for a show. I forget what arena he said it was.
I think it was Jinsei Shinsaki's 30th, that was the one. Yeah.
So, but like they could be doing like a lot of like really good, solid business in Northern Japan. Like they're probably doing regular shows, and I'd imagine the houses have gone up quite a bit with Fujita Junior Hayato coming back. And like that's a name that, like, when you think the later era of Michinoku Pro, like he was the guy they built around. He was the heart and soul of the promotion as Shinsei Shinzaki's kind of prize pupils. Him and Keno were the two guys that Shinzaki kind of brought through, and Keno of course went on to Noah, but Hayato, who could have gone to New Japan after he had like these breakout performances in the 2009 Super J Cup, the 2010 Best of Super Juniors, and I think he might have done the 2011 Best of Super Juniors as well. He had just his own fan base in Japan because of his story with his with both his parents' health situations, with his father with cerebral palsy, and having the wrestling promotion Dog's Legs, which if anyone watched the All-Star Junior Festival, Chris Charlton talked about that on commentary, and Hayato then having his issues in the last couple of years with his mentor, MMA fighter Kid Yamamoto, dying of cancer, and then right away, almost, I feel like it was weeks later.
Yeah, it was not long after. Yeah. Yeah,
he gets diagnosed with tumors all over his spine, and it's like he is not
spinal tumors. Think about that. Spinal tumors.
He's basically faced with this decision of he can have this incredibly risky surgery, and maybe be able to have a wrestling career, potentially, or he can accept various limitations and not go back to the life he wanted. But yeah, so he, like, his prognosis was not good, but I've written about it a few times. Like, Shinzaki stayed by his side throughout it. There's these photos of Shinsei Shinzaki like rolling Hayato out of hospital in a wheelchair and all this kind of stuff. And for him to come back and for it to be like, he initially had just the one comeback match, and I was like, oh, that's great, he was able to do that one match. But then it was like he came back full time and he won the title, and he's like just as good as he was. Like, he wears a t-shirt now. That's the only difference. As I don't know if he's covering up scars or whatever issues he might have, or if he just wants to wear a t-shirt. But that's like literally the only difference between Hayato now and Hayato then. He still has all the same charisma. He still has all the same crowd support. Which, if you watched All Star Junior Festival, he got some of the best reactions on the show.
Yeah, they did.
Like, he's a guy that, like, I'm sure they started to draw some better houses locally in northern Japan with his comeback. And, just the fact that they continue to exist, continue to pump out young talent that are able to work the shows. And, I think they're still a successful small business, and more power to them. I hope there is always room for Michinoku Pro in whatever form it's in the pro wrestling industry. And if it's able to make a big comeback at some point, if they get some new young stars through that really take hold and do great things, that would be awesome. If they get like some kind of a TV deal where we start to see some of their stuff a bit more regularly and not just the one Tokyo show a year, as you mentioned, that'd be cool. So yeah, a real feel-good wrestling promotion for sure.
Yeah, it just definitely, every time I watch them, it's just always like fun vibes. It's always cool vibes, going back and watching old Michinoku Pro. But again, cannot recommend Case's article enough if you want a little bit of a background about the company. And, again, like leading into pretty much what you got from Dragon Gate as well. Like, Dragon Gate is the spiritual successor of that. Now, today's Dragon Gate is obviously a little bit different in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of the Lucha Riso style it's still there a bit in Dragon Gate, but not nearly as much as it was obviously in the 2000s or whatever. But yeah, you can see the direct line there. And then again, the direct line that you could see for a lot of modern wrestling is just, it's there in Michinoku Pro. But I think what you pointed out was great too, that it wasn't just guys in masks doing cool moves. It was also really, really cool stories and really good fan connections that just made them stand out even more than a lot of other promotions. But if you want, read that article and definitely watch all the matches if you get a chance. None of the matches are like super, super long. They're probably the longest going to be about 30 minutes, but I think you'll be a better, more, learned wrestling fan by going and watching those matches and understanding, a little bit of that history of that wrestling style and how important that wrestling style is to today's wrestling as well. The Young Bucks are, derivatives of that style, like, for sure. Like, there's absolutely no doubt about it. That's where they are. In lineage you can follow the Young Bucks and trace the Young Bucks back to a lot of the stuff you're going to see on those shows and on those matches. But again, voicewrestling.com. 30th anniversary of Michinoku Pro Wrestling. So, Alan, let's get into our top 10 wrestlers of the year so far. Let's do some power rankings here. It is March 16th, but there has been a lot of great wrestling. We've watched a lot. You've watched a lot. I think fans, people listening in right now have probably watched a lot as well. So at home, hey, make your own list if you'd like to as well. Agree, disagree with anything that we have to say. But this is an idea that you brought forward to me, and we're like, it's a little early. I don't know. This might be ridiculous, but it was a lot of fun to do this. And I kind of feel like my list might be a little too chalky, but I'm curious where you're at with your list. But how do you want to do this? Do you want to start at 10? Do you want to start at 1? Do you want to do your entire list and I do my entire list? Like,
I think going back and forth probably. Okay. I think that tends to work the best in terms of building building suspense and living at our number one at the same time. But the reason, to give a bit of background of why I started doing this, like, I kind of felt I feel like I have a bit of a new relationship with wrestling coming out of the last couple of years in terms of how much effort / thought I'm putting into, like, as you know, Rich, I, like, for instance, the FSM 50 last year, like, I didn't put in a ballot because I just felt I hadn't kept good enough track of what I enjoyed and stuff, and B, I just didn't feel I had covered enough ground to like, I hold kind of doing something like that to a certain standard, and like that's why we had such a good panel, because I think everyone on the panel is someone who has a really good had a really good feel for pro wrestling in 2022 and had watched a lot of stuff, and I just didn't feel like I could add to that. So but going into this year, I was like hoping to kind of, it was really when those first couple of weeks of January, like I talked about, when things were kind of encouraging, I was like, okay, things might be a bit fun this year. So I want to try and keep track of things. And I don't have the time or the willpower to update my traditional match of the year tracking list of everything that's essentially a notebook match, like Joe is doing. Like now that I was doing that from 2007 to 2019. And when that broke in 2020, when I broke the habit, it's a hard one to pick back up. So I was like, okay, I want to keep track in some way, shape, or form. So what I've been doing is I've been marking down everything that I have as like a 4.5-star match. So I am keeping track every month of the matches that I considered 4.5-star, which is essentially high-end match of the year candidates. And then I decided that I would do just a very simple exercise of, okay, at the end of each month, what are my power rankings of wrestlers that I've been watching? So a top 10. And then I would get to move wrestlers up and down throughout the year, wrestlers coming into the top 10, wrestlers falling out, wrestlers moving up spots, wrestlers moving down spots. I just thought it would be an interesting, different way of doing it that would keep me engaged. And thus far it has been, and it's been a motivating thing for me to make sure I'm watching stuff and keeping on top of the things that I'm enjoying. And thankfully there's been, as we talked about earlier, there's been a lot of things I've been enjoying, and this list is purely, like, I make no bones that this is a definitive, like, these are the 10 best wrestlers in the world. That's not what this is. This is the power rankings of how much the 10 wrestlers that I've been enjoying the most at this point in the year throughout the year so far. So it's very biased towards what I've been watching and the promotions and stuff that I've been enjoying. The wrestlers that I've watched the most matches of obviously are going to have an advantage over others. So it's purely something that if you're interested in my taste and my opinion, then this might be of some value to you. If you're not, and you're just looking for a definitive, someone who has watched every little thing in the world and can give you a complete and accurate top 10, I'm not that guy. And Rich, I would venture to say you wouldn't be able to do that either.
Probably not quite that guy. Yeah, Joe's going a little bit more than even me. I mean, he's doing the thing for
Joe's going hard
on our flagship. Yeah, if you're interested in doing that, flagship, patreon.com. Patreon.com/Voices of Wrestling. Joe's doing his notebook roundups where he pretty much tries to watch every match that somebody recommends to him in a given month.
Unless it's got a fallen idol or a
right. If the person has a tail or there's too many Meteoras, then yeah, it's off the list. But no, and then also doing Wrestlers of the Month for every one of those months as well. So that's a great resource if you're like, well, I'm trying to catch up. I want to know what's good. Filter as much as you can through me. But yeah, he's watching as much as he can. But obviously, it's still skewed a little bit where you're like, there's not a whole lot of American indie stuff in there. It tends to be more, New Japan, WWE, Rev Pro, Japan. But he is watching Big Japan. There was a match from Prestige last month that he gave notebook matches to, or notebook rating to. So yeah, there is a lot there. So if you're looking for a more complete Because I'm not nearly as he's going full masochist there, where he's just watching as much as he humanly can. I am not doing that as well. So yeah, my list is a little bit more of my own biases as well, but that's fine. It's my top 10 wrestlers of the year. It's not the definitive, objective top 10 wrestlers of the year so far. It's my top 10 and it's your top 10, so that's fine. So you want to start with your number 10, and I'll give you my number 10. Then afterwards, you can lead the charge here. We seem to have lost Alan. I will get him back here in a moment. Just give me one sec. I will do another plug then for FlagshipPatreon.com. February Notebook Roundup is up. That was up a couple days ago. Joe giving 45 matches in February, the Notebook 4+ star rating. So yeah, just an incredible month of February. That's after 28 matches in January. So the year to date, 73 matches that reached the Notebook. So again, that is a great article. If you're looking to jump in. Also this week, I posted the WrestleMania Weekend memories about the Zack Sabre Jr. versus Will Ospreay match that is there. The AEW Dynamite review from this week. Joe is cranky, so it's a little bit of a cranky review of a very weird Dynamite, which I would agree as well, having watched that. It was a very strange show, but that's a little bit of what was going on this week over at FlagshipPatreon.com. Also, the match of the week, Master Blaster versus Brad Armstrong and Tim Horner. So a lot of stuff going up there. And I also wrapped up the Canadian Heart Month as well, talking about Bret Hart versus Chris Benoit. Okay, Alan, are you back?
I think I am.
There you go. Yes, I can hear you. You're good. All right, good.
Yeah, it was weird. I think it's some kind of power outage or something. Everything just went off there for like only a few seconds.
That happened to me last week. Like we got a bad mojo with the show. Maybe we should cancel it. So it's just
because that never happens here. So yeah, it's something. It's definitely coming from the Voice of Wrestling flagship energy.
It has to be, yeah, because that's happened to me last week. Like we were midway through the show and then everything just powered off, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And that never happens ever, and I'm jinxing it. It's going to happen again on this show, but again, it's never happened before, so we'll see if it happens. But no, we are back. We got Alan again. So how about you start with your number 10, and then I will give you my number 10, and we'll just go up and down the list from there.
We're doing a cheeky honorable mention. We've been allowed one cheeky honorable mention.
Right.
So I am going with someone who I watched a match. It was the last match I watched before we started recording, and I loved it, and I want to have this guy in my top 10, but unfortunately I'm only able to have 10 people in my top 10, so he's just missing out. And that is the great veteran now that we can call him, the wandering freelancer, Naruki Doi.
Oh, yeah. Drawing houses, man. My boy is drawing houses out there.
He is having himself a year, and the match that I watched just wowed me, knocked the socks off me, was Doi versus Rising Hayato, having the absolute singles match of his career, I would say, yesterday in Shinjuku Face against Doi. Masterful performance from Doi. This thing ruled. It contains the best Bakatari sliding kick I have ever seen.
Oh, that's a big claim. Are you putting that on record? You're putting that on record?
I don't think Rising Hayato's face would agree with this being the best bat, but he only has himself to blame because he's basically not in position early enough, and he turns right into Naruki Doi at full steam, coming with that boot, and he gets destroyed. It's fantastic. But that match rules. Doi is amazing. Doi has been having a great year in
that's from
matches.
All Japan, right? That was the All Japan show.
All Japan yesterday, yes. So Doi, I really wanted to get in here, but I wasn't able to.
All right. Do you want me to give you my cheeky number 11?
Yeah, please do.
All right. So I have been watching the 0-1 obviously this year, and I thought I was just going to watch my 1-0-1 and then I was going to be out, because normally like 0-1 it's like, all right, well, I'll see you guys in August or whatever when the next 0-1 show pops up. And then I was perusing things and I saw the 0-1 22nd anniversary, the less celebrated 22nd anniversary of 0-1, and I just wanted to shout out a guy that every time that I watch him, he's not really my number 11. It's a cheeky pick. But Fuminori Abe,
just had him in Germany at the weekend.
Did awesome. He rule?
Oh, he's always amazing. Abe is crazy.
Yeah, so I always have this thing, and I talked about it when we reviewed the 0-1 show in the beginning of the year. Every time he comes out, I'm like, here we go, Minoru Abe. Like, for some reason, I think that I hate him, but then I watch him wrestle, and I'm like, that guy fucking rocks. Like, why do I say that I hate him? And then I forget again, and then like 6 months go by, and I don't see him again, and then I'm like, here we go, Minoru Abe, here we go. And then I'm always like, at the end of the match, like, that guy's really good. I don't know why I don't like him. I've now decided 2023 is the year that I am going to start respecting and knowing that I enjoy him and remembering that I remember him. So that is why he is my cheeky number 11 there. But yeah, I guess we'll talk about him a little bit later then too with the 16 Carat. But yeah, every time I see this guy, I'm like, he fucking rocks. Like I should watch and respect him a little bit more. So he is my very cheeky, extremely cheeky number 11. And I can't believe that he's only 28 years old, because that man looks like he's like 39. He wrestles like he's 39, but he's
apparently a practicing Buddhist monk on the side.
Incredible. Wow.
Yeah, but in case I forget to mention it later, Rich, you're gonna need to watch his match from night 3 of 16 Carat, because there's
writing it down right now.
A traditional match every 16 Carat, the semi-main event of the final night. So right before the final goes on, they have what they call party catch. Catch being the German for wrestling, and party catch is basically your crazy all-out spot fest style match. It's really taken on a lucha flavor in recent years, as kind of luchadors have become in vogue in the US indies. And so you have names such as Commander, Ares, Trey Miguel, a couple of European guys, Miguel Blanc and Sensivalto, who are great flyers in this match, 6-man tag. And the 6th man involved in this crazy lucha spot fest is Fuminori Abe.
Yes.
And he is just as amazing as you would expect, playing into the fish out of water scenario that he finds himself in.
Yeah, the bell rings and he looks around. He's like, uh-oh, I don't belong here at all. Like, what is going on here?
It's so much fun. It is absolutely awesome. The guy is amazing. Yeah, he is so good. And oh my God, Rich, did you see that pre-show match on the All-Star Junior Festival?
Yes.
How good was he in that?
It's that, and then I watched the 22nd anniversary one, and he was in a tag match on that show. And I don't watch DDT, like I don't, but I maybe need to start watching at least Abe DDT matches. I wrote down the 16 Carat, so once that's available to watch, definitely gonna watch that one. But yeah, that All-Star Junior pre-show match, like that was one of the reasons that I was like, dude, I went into the match being like, no, I remember that I like this guy, so I'm gonna like this, and the match is great. That is one of my favorite matches of the entire Junior Festival was that pre-show match with Abe, and he rocks. He is just I need to give him the love.
Hearing Kevin Kelly react to him, like probably he was just Kevin Kelly. So many guys, like one of my favorite things about that show was Kevin Kelly just seeing guys he'd never seen before and either sort of semi-burying them or just being like super impressed and just reacting off the cuff, and he was definitely wowed by Abe.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And the astronauts, I love them too. So it's like, I don't know why I just, for some reason, I just have this thing with it's because he works in a lot of the promotions that I think are like ultra scuzzy. So I'm like, here we go. Here's another scuzzer, but he's not, he's a step above. He's got the line in his hair. No. He is a true Renaissance man, Fuminori Abe. So he is my very cheeky number 11.
Your true Renaissance man, the day before Carat kicked off, was walking through the streets of Gelsenkirchen, and he posted a tweet about how he had found his lucky charm for the weekend, and it was a used condom on the street.
Well, why do you think I have the thought that I have about this guy? Like, here he comes an indie scuzzer. And it's like, he is, but he's a step above your normal indie scuzzer. But yeah, that's perfect. A used German condom is what Fuminori Abe is going to inspire him throughout the weekend. So incredible. Yeah, that if that doesn't wrap up Fuminori Abe in the perfect way possible, there is no better way. So.
Okay, so my official number 10 is my highest Dragon Gate rep on this list. I think he's been the standout performer so far in Dragon Gate this year. It is Madoka Kakuta, the big hip man himself.
Yeah, the big butt. You like big butts, and you can't lie. I love it.
It's just had a great great Rated Paredes Tag League, got to the final, won it, and then had a great open Twin Gate match with KZ and Big Boss Shimizu. He's just looked good every time I've seen him, and he's had a couple of really high-end matches. Like, he's had a couple of the best matches in Dragon Gate this year, so he's been my standout guy. I think they're definitely setting him up for maybe a Dream Gate match coming up soon. I have to listen to Open the Voice Gate from yesterday to really form my knowledge on where they're going, because Case and Mike have their finger on the pulse better than I do these days. So I'll listen to that and I'll know for sure what
hopefully
is blowing.
Yeah, the problem with, I mean, if people don't remember, like they had built him up for that match, and then he has, that Dreamgate match, and then like seconds into the match, he has an injury.
2 years ago?
Yeah, it was like the most devastating thing I've ever seen in a wrestling show, where it's like this guy's they've been building it up and building it up and building it up, and it felt like the right time. Like, I don't think he was going to win it. I don't think anybody thought he was going to win, the title or whatever, but
he was only 6 months into his career.
Right. And it was
months.
like, here's this hotshot superstar or whatever. And he goes into the match and he starts out and he does like one spot in his shoulder, like completely gives out or whatever. Wasn't it the shoulder? I forget what the injury was. It was something like that. He takes a spot and his shoulder just goes out. And it's like, fuck. And they have to end the match immediately. And then the guy's just gone for like months on end. And it's like, oh my God. It was
touch and go whether he'd even be able to come back.
Yeah. Like, how devastating is that? So it's fun to see. And he's a guy that, like, I've always saw it with him. Like, a lot of these younger guys, like, I think there's a lot of potential with a lot of the Dragon Gate young guys, but I'm with you that Kakuta to me has been like the one that it's like, this dude, he just exudes. He's got that star energy that a lot of the other guys, like, it takes a little while for a lot of these Dragon Gate guys, and like obviously they're put in prominent spots, very early on in their careers. So you can't judge a book, by it immediately. If you judge a Dragon Gate guy by his first year, like, that's not fair to do at all, because these guys are very, very early in their careers. But Kukuda always felt like a guy who had a little bit more energy or a little bit more of the it factor. And yeah, you're starting to see that build up again here.
He's got size as well, which is a thing that makes him stand out. And
the unique wrestling style too. I mean, the guy turns around and puts that big badonka in the guy, and the crowd goes nuts. They love the ass. Like, the crowd is just like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like they've done a really good job of making that his gimmick or whatever. And
and he's got that big rolling lariat, which is a great match or a great move for like a big finishing stretch. Like the one he pulled out on BB Hulk in the first night of the tournament was unreal timing. It looked so good. But yeah, he's like, when he came back from the injury, it was real up and down for a while.
It wasn't there.
Then when he got hooked up with D-Courage, and he was originally just an assistant, and they were like, well, he's not a full-time member. And then he was so good so quickly, and he wins the Twin Gate with Dragon Dia, and then they're like, hey, you should be a real member of this team with the two of us, not just an assistant. And since the calendar turned into 2023, he has just been incredible. And he's the standout performer in Dragon Gate this year.
It's a great number 10. My number 10, I'm going to go to the world of Stardom as well. This is my only representative from this Joshi world and the Stardom world. Julia, I don't know how much you've watched of her this year or the last couple of years, but she has ascended into like one of the most well-rounded wrestlers in the world. I mean, she can just do it all. Like, she can brawl, she can work, and she just carries herself more than anything. She just carries herself like an absolute star, like just an absolute superstar. Just that energy when she walks into the room, and the shoulders are up and the head's up, and it's just like, yeah, that's a star. You know what I mean? That's a capital S star right there. I mean, just carries herself with such just energy of just like, I'm a fucking superstar, and I know I am, and you all know I am, and yeah, it carries on a different feel when she wrestles. But the actual wrestling is kind of coming together for her as well. She can do it all. She can work, she can brawl, she can fly a little bit if you need her to. Like, she can just kind of do everything, and really just more of the end. It's just when she comes out, it's like, it's a big time match. You know what I mean? Like, this means business. This is a match that matters. This is an important match because she's in this, and that she's ascended to that level in Stardom right now.
Yeah, she's excellent. I think I've only seen one of her matches from this year so far. It was a February show, I think. I was the main event of the show that had Chihiro Hashimoto versus Mirai, which that was my favorite Stardom match I've seen this year. I haven't seen a ton. I decided to kind of take a break from Stardom for a while because I tried to really keep up with it and watch everything, and
Yeah, that's
especially
the
during
12th
pandemic.
anniversary show. For not to interrupt, that is February. If people want to watch, February 4th, 12th anniversary Supreme Fight 2023, and that's Julia versus Suzu Suzuki. That was the main event. That match rocks.
Because I wanted to see Suzuki because I didn't see her last year, and she did very well in the FSM 50. We had a couple of people with ballots to put her very high, and just a lot of people think highly of her. So I was interested in that match. It was pretty good, but a lot of Stardom. So I gave myself a break from Stardom for a while because I was trying to watch probably too much of it, and I got burnt out on it because during the era of the restrictions, it was a bit like watching New Japan, and that they were having these kind of a lot of the main events are these kind of big epics and stuff, and when there's the limitations on the crowd, it was just they were kind of meaty. You'd be looking at these show files that were like 4.5 hours long or whatever, and there's a lot of meat to it. It would take up a lot of time if you wanted to watch a full Stardom big show or whatever. So I tried to probably watch more than I should have, and it burnt me out. I like a lot of the wrestlers, but it doesn't always land with me, and sometimes it does, and Julia is a great example of that. Sometimes her big matches land with me, sometimes they don't. But regardless, every time she absolutely comes off like a superstar, like you said. She is she's someone that, like you said, she owns the room when she walks out with her entrance. She always puts a ton of you're notoriously Rich Craich. You are an effort guy. Right?
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Not a body guy, an effort guy. Thank you.
You're not a body guy, you're an effort guy. And who puts more effort into their look and their appearance, having different outfits, constantly refreshing their look than Julia? Like she seems to have like a different vibe or theme to her appearance, like every time I see her, which is I don't know, maybe she just gets bored easily. But when they shaved her head a couple of years ago, I've lost track of time. I think it was like 2 years ago or whatever. Maybe it was a year ago or whatever. To me, it felt kind of like a test a little bit of like, all right, let's see, are you actually? And she just owned that too. She made that look cool.
Yeah, she made it fucking incredible. And it was like, oh, she's just a superstar. Like no matter what you do no matter what look she has, no matter what she's donning, like it's her. It's not a look. It's not the hair. It's not the gear. It's just her. She's that good. And that to me was the moment where it was like, oh, okay. Like she's a star. She's a star with a capital S there, because, loses all of her hair. And it's like, well, no, I'm just going to make that work and make it awesome and make that look just incredible too. So yeah, she has that it factor for sure. And definitely someone to keep an eye on. Obviously New Japan sees the tremendous value in her as well, with the relationship between Stardom and New Japan. So there's going to be, I see a Julia Mercedes match happening sometime in the very near future, and that's going to be a thing for sure.
Yeah, and there's similarities with them in style, and that they're both like super scrappy, and they've similar builds, and I could totally see that being a really complimentary match. But I suppose I'll move on to my number 9, and we have a guy who has slipped down my rankings just through lack of activity in the last few weeks, but he was very active in January. I had him number 2 at the end of January. He slipped down to number 4 at the end of February, and now he is currently down at 9, so he's just hanging on to the top 10 based off the strength of his work earlier in the year. It is Darby Allen. I don't think I need to tell anyone about the great matches Darby Allen's been having on AEW Dynamite and Rampage, because everyone probably saw them. They were awesome.
And Darby rocks. Yeah, he's a guy that I still think that AEW should be doing more with the guy. And like, I know that they have an asset in Darby, and I just don't know if everybody knows quite what an asset that guy is. Cause I just think he's like just fucking awesome. Like he's so good. And there's going to come a time where it's going to be undeniable that guy has to be like one of your top dudes. But I don't know, maybe this week may have been a good start for it.
I don't think he's long for wrestling. That's the vibe I get. I don't have any inside scoops or anything. It's just, the way he talks and his, I think he's here for a memorable time, not a long time.
Yeah, and, you're probably right.
Yeah, I think they're going to do different things that intrigue him and interest him, and like that TNT title run was a pretty unique deal. Like of this guy that wins this title, like he had won it originally and had this memorable reign, and says he hasn't been the same since he lost that, and he wants that again. And but the only problem is the champion is this absolute beast called Samoa Joe, and he manages to find a way to beat Samoa Joe after already getting destroyed by him. And then after getting destroyed by him again in winning the title, he proceeds to basically defend it every week or twice a week if he does Rampage as well. Like he had that incredible Mike Bennett match, a really good Juice Robinson match as we're on Rampage. And he's just, every match, he's just getting destroyed. Different injuries coming away from each match. And they're just like, but he keeps finding ways to win. And it was just this really memorable run of this guy just going absolutely crazy for a few week period. And his first TNT title run was pretty long. This one was short, but intense is the best way to describe it. And even in losing it, he had another insane match with Joe. So he's been on the bench since then, but I think we're gearing up to do something again with him now, and then eventually I think we're going to see something with him and Sting, which is maybe it'll be both their retirements.
Right, yeah.
Who would have thought? But yeah, maybe Sting outlasts Darby. Maybe it's Sting wrestling Darby's retirement match as opposed to Darby wrestling Sting.
Right, yeah. Sting feels eternal. Like, yeah, it feels like there's never going to feel like the right time for him to actually retire. And yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, there's a less than zero chance that Darby, a much more less than zero chance that Darby retires before Sting actually retires too, which is pretty wild. So my number 9, going to go to the world of Pro Wrestling Noah here, and it's Kaito Kiyomiya, who had a great match with Kano on January 1st. And then he got eaten alive in this match, but I thought he played his role well. So it's like weird I still want to credit him for this match because it's like it still does count. But the match with Okada was fucking tremendous. Like
I love that match.
Now, like, yeah, he got eaten alive and destroyed it, but like there was a lot of the match where he was playing his role perfectly, and that's part of wrestling. You know what I mean? Playing that second role is also part of it. And it takes two to tango and two to have a great match or whatever. So no, I do think I want to give him credit for that Okada match as well. But I think Kiyomiya has done enough in the early part of the year to get an inclusion on this list, so I put him at number 9 for me.
I think he deserves credit because that little shitbag kick that he did a couple of weeks before that match, I think that was a big fuse lighter in this, what we talked about earlier of Japanese wrestling having this renewed buzz this year. I think that kick was a moment that things were like, whoa, it's on in Japan.
Right, and that level of hatred that we haven't had in just a long time. Like that was a throwback, man, to like the old days where it was like these guys would do these interpromotional things, but they didn't like each other. You know what I mean? Like they would do it because they had to do it for business, but they still fucking hated each other. You know what I mean? Or they went in there and they maybe took liberties with the other guy. Yeah, it was a really old school thing, and yeah, we saw more out of Kiyomiya in that moment and in that little bit of time than we saw for him for years. So no, I think he's had a standout year thus far, and yeah, we'll see if the rest of the year carries on like that, but I think he's had a lot of good stuff so far in 2023.
Yeah, the problem with me with Kiyomiya is that I'm not hugely interested in what they got going on in Noah at the moment. So yeah, and him and Jake Lee coming off him versus Jack Morris and that's harsh because I've literally I don't think I've seen a Jack Morris match yet, but it just I understand he's been, people have enjoyed him, but yeah, I know it's the one promotion that when I do watch it, it doesn't feel like it has that that energy there to it, and I think that's the booking and the shooting themselves in the foot that they did in most of 2022. I think that's the chickens are coming home to roost a bit for them, especially now that Muto's gone, so they don't have that thing propping them up. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of reaction Jake Lee and Kiyomiya gets. If I hear that match has a good atmosphere and it's a really good match and they do good business, I will give that a shot. But until I hear that about something in Noah, I am going to kind of keep Noah parked on my sidelines. But I did really enjoy the Okada match. That was really good.
All right, so we'll move on to your number 8 now.
I had to get a CMLL guy in here, and all through the year, Stuka Jr. has been my CMLL guy, but he has been quiet the last few weeks, and he has slipped to the list, and the man who has taken his spot as my CMLL rep is someone who I had pretty much no familiarity with before this year, and he has become one of my favorite luchadors of the past, I don't know how long. This guy rules, Rich. I just saw him as a generic... I just thought he was some generic guy. I didn't know anything about him, and now he is a favorite. He is Templario. Where this guy has come from, I know nothing about his background. I don't know nothing about him, but he has been my MVP of CMLL so far this year. I think he rules. He's worked he kind of works like a tweener. Like sometimes he's kind of a bit of a sympathetic babyface. Other times he's a bit of a ass-kicking heel. He can base. He can fly. He can do it all. He looked great on Fantastic and Mania Tour. He's looked great in Arena Mexico. He's my favorite guy right now in CMLL. I love the Templario.
I love it. Yeah, I have another CMLL guy that's going to come up. He's 5th on my list. It is not Templario, but Templario is awesome. I have another guy that has stood out for me. Similar vibe where I was just like, I didn't think that this guy was like this kind of dude. And then like this year he's been incredible. But yeah, CMLL, we've talked about it in the Flagship here for listeners of the Flagship know about this. But yeah, if you have not checked in on CMLL this year, you got to do it. The talent is there. The access is there. I mean, it's available on YouTube. A lot of the big time stuff. They have a big show coming up this weekend as well. They are firing on all cylinders in terms of stories are good. The wrestling is good. They had a great Fantastica Mania. You got to watch CMLL. Like you just have to. You like drop something from your, if you're like, I don't have time. No. Drop something and add CMLL because they are doing some incredible special stuff and you don't want to miss out on it. That's the best I could say about it. I'll have a little bit more to say on number 5 with my guy, but yeah, to your point, Templario rocks. Watch CMLL. That's all I could say.
Yeah, and he has a 4.5-star match on my books this year. It's from Fantastic Mania. You and Joe talked about it. It is the 6-man tag from before the Cork and Hall shows. It's Mystico, Soberano, and Desperado against Hechicero, Doki, and Templario. So, yeah, that thing ruled. And he also had a really good singles match with Soberano in early January in Arena Mexico. So, yeah, he's fantastic.
Yep, you're doing a good job of mentioning the guy that's going to be number 5 for a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned there. So we'll get to him in a bit. My number 8 is Shingo Takagi. He had the match against Okada in February that I absolutely loved. That was like the unlocking of absolute dickhead Okada. Obviously, the Kiyomiya match was the beginning of absolute dickhead Okada, but then the Shingo match was like, no, this guy's a fucking asshole, and I love it. And then I loved Shingo versus Nakajima from the Noah New Japan show. So I was
cheering you on when you were saying you really liked that when
Thank
Joe
you.
didn't like it that much. I was like, did I watch a different match?
Thank you.
I thought that thing ruled, and it was so good. And honestly, I think I'm in the minority on this. I know I'm like the low man on the Okada match, but I preferred Shingo Nakajima to Shingo Okada. It's I just thought it was. I think it's because I don't know, like there were things about Shingo Okada which were like different to the norm for an Okada match, but I don't know, it was I still found it to be quite kind of Okada pattern.
Right, you've seen that match. It had a different vibe, but you've seen that match before.
Yeah, I've just seen like all the big Okada matches, like literally all of them. So, someone who's maybe newer to Okada is going to still get more out of them than I do. I am encouraged by some of the stuff I've seen from him outside of that match this year, like the Kiyomi match. But anyway, sorry, that's more talking about Okada. Shingo, the Nakajima match, yeah, that felt different. It felt fresh. I really just loved the way Nakajima had Shingo's number in the match and was just picking him apart with strikes and destroying his ribs and midsection, and Shingo couldn't breathe right. His selling was like, Shingo does not get enough credit for how well he sells when he wants to get across a story in a match.
Yeah.
He was just great at that there. He was like basically on the strength of that match, he was prominent in my top 10 for the end of January and the end of February, but he has fallen out now. He's no longer in there, but I have no doubt he'll probably get back up and he'll be a fixture of my power rankings for various points throughout the year.
Yes, there you go. Shingo Takagi is my number 8. All right, you're number 7, Alan.
Number 7. Okay, so I have a incredibly consistent, fun television performer here. I have Orange Cassidy, the international champion now, formerly
yes, the new
champion.
Yeah, new name. Thoughts on the name? The All Atlantic is no more. It's now international.
I don't know. It's fine. I don't get hung up too much.
I don't
these
care
things.
either.
I had gotten used to All Atlantic, so I'm probably gonna like keep calling it All Atlantic for like a year until I get used to international. But I thought it was really. I had no idea about this movie or what was going on last week when they did that video package. I was like, what is this? What are we talking about? What's this really weird video package? But then it kind of all made sense. And I thought him and I sense I've listened to like the first 15 minutes of Joe's TV reviews. He seems to be building up to the fact that he didn't like that match. Maybe I'm wrong, but I did like that match. So I don't know what the consensus has been on it. I've liked pretty much all of Orange Cassidy's TV stuff this year. I loved the Wheeler Yuta match from a couple of weeks ago. I thought that was really, really good. And I just think he's like, I was like a higher man on the potential of Orange Cassidy in AEW than I think you guys were. But I didn't expect him to have the staying power and just the ability to wrestle as much as he has and keep things feeling fresh while still staying within like a pretty like he's still staying true to kind of what he is, and it's the same kind of spots that he builds to, the mousetrap, the orange punch. It's like he just finds different creative ways to build around them in the context of his matches, and he's just been great, a real enjoyable part of AEW to me, and he's on a really good run right now, like Darby was during the year. I actually put up a poll. I should check in on this. I put up a poll last night on Twitter over seeing if people prefer Darby's TNT title run or Orange Cassidy's All Atlantic run so far this year. And let's see, live results. With 12 hours left, we have 106 votes, and 52.8% have chosen Darby, 47.2% have chosen Orange Cassidy. So very much even Stevens there. So that's Orange Cassidy for me.
Yeah, the fact that he's been able to stay fresh, doing like a lot of this like he does a lot of similar things, but he does it in different, unique ways that makes it like you should be bored to tears about Orange Cat. You know what I mean? Like a lesser performer, you'd be so annoyed of like, here we go. Here comes the low kicks or whatever. But there's something about Orange that he's just that good at it. It's like, you know what I mean? Like truly good comedy wrestlers, truly good guys that can be funny wrestlers are a different level than other people that try to be funny then, end up just not, falling on their face and just doing the same routine over and over and over again. And once you've seen it once, you've seen it 1,000 times. Orange is not that way. So that's a good pull right there. My number 7 is also from AEW. MJF. When you have as good of a match as that Iron Man match was, I got to put you in here. And that was one of my favorite. I mean, that is like a top tier match for me of all time. You add in the Takeshita, the Takeshita match, I should say, for good measure. I mean, that was Bryan Danielson had a better one. We're going to talk about Bryan Danielson here in a little bit. But MJF, you have the Iron Man, you have the Takeshita match. That's enough for me to get in there, top 10. So, one half of that Iron Man and just being as masterful as he was in that match, he belongs here in my top 10.
Yeah, I can't argue that. I think if there wasn't such a competition, I would be like easily putting MJF into my top 10. But because there's other guys I want to get in, I feel it's easy to give myself the excuse of, he's only had 2 matches, so I can't put him in yet. So my rule that I'm going to apply with MJF this year is I will not add him to my power rankings until he has had a whopping 5 matches this year.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And that might
the 5
take you till August or whatever. But yeah.
It's unique. It's we haven't seen this, Rich, in God, when was the last time we had what, as he calls it, a special attraction? I suppose Brock in a way, but it was like he's, for someone who's so still new in their career to be like this, like he's still in his mid-20s and he's like, he's a guy that you don't get to see wrestle very often, and whenever he does, his hit rate is just so high now. He kills it every time. So it's like it leaves you wanting to watch him more. And I guess that's the idea. And I thought the matches he had with Wheeler Yuta and Ricky Starks and kind of the back end of 2022 were phenomenal and showed how much he'd been improving, and that's been solidified with what we've seen this year. And the Danielson matches, it is my match of the year so far. I would have it pipping Ospreay and Kenny just by a hair. But yeah, it's going to take some serious beating. And I think MJF will probably have a couple matches this year that we talk about in the same breath, even if it doesn't reach just as high of the level as this Iron Man match does. But he has looked fantastic when we've had the privilege of seeing him wrestle.
Right. Yeah, they've now baked that into his story too, that the man just doesn't wrestle. So it's interesting. But yeah, that's fair. That is absolutely fair to give him 5 matches. Then you could put him on that list. But all right, your number 6, right? We're up to number 6. Yeah. Who's your number 6?
Well, I just mentioned a match there, and this is one where the guy is getting in very much on the strength of this one match, but a couple of others too. It is Will Ospreay. Obviously Ospreay and Kenny, but also the Tai Chi match. And some of the other bits and bobs I've seen him do this year, where he's just been like, I haven't watched as much Ospreay as Joe has, or I don't think I've seen as much as you have, Rich. I haven't been watching the stuff he's done in the UK. But like, yeah, it's Ospreay. It's like he does what he does, and it's really good. He is tremendous, and it's, to me, it's undeniable for just how good the guy is in the ring, and like that performance against Kenny was just, it really was excellent. And I'm obviously downplaying it. Like I can't. How can you speak upon that match or about that match without downplaying it? Because like there aren't enough superlatives.
No, it's a one-of-one match in like wrestling history.
The Tai Chi match, his performance in that thing was so good too. And I haven't seen the Mark Davis match yet. I've heard that's very good. Mm-hmm. Hopefully
it's so good because he blows his shoulder out like halfway through, and it's still great.
He gets hurt.
It's still good afterwards
in that match. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. You'll see it. It'll be very obvious when it happens, and then you'll be even more impressed that he not only finishes the match, but it stays good. Like it's not like it completely falls apart and they got to go home right away. Like it's still fine, and you're like, oh, I guess it wasn't as bad. And then they're like, no, he's out for who knows how long now. At that point, hopefully not for too long, because he's doing some special stuff this year.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll come up on your list.
Yeah, I'll a little bit later. I'll mention Will and the stuff about him. But hey, my number 6. You mentioned him before, a match he had against Will Ospreay this year. It's Kenny Omega, who is one of the most underrated wrestlers in the world because, like, I say that, like, you're probably listening going, Rich, like, it's Kenny Omega. But, like, I don't think we quite appreciate how good he is because this year, I've rated him 6. I'm underrating him. I'm rating him 6th. He had the match against Ospreay, the trio stuff against the House of Black that he's had over the last couple of weeks, the final stages of the Best of 7 series. Yes, that also happened this year. What we just saw this week on Dynamite. Like, we don't appreciate Kenny Omega enough. I don't appreciate him enough, but he is, I put quietly putting together another stellar year, which is unbelievable that I'm saying quietly because it's just like every time he goes out there, you just know what you're going to get from him. And the consistency is just on another level at this point. And I think it's become so consistently great that, like, we just kind of forget about him and it just becomes commonplace. Oh yeah, Kenny Omega had a great match. Okay, whatever. And we move on with our lives. But, like, I don't think we quite appreciate how good he has been this year.
Well, this works out nicely because he's my number 5.
Perfect. Well, he's right into there.
Everything you mentioned there, the final, the ladder match, the Ospreay match, the House of Black matches, and also what I would really point to as one of my favorite things Kenny has done this year is that finishing sequence him and Aora Fox had in the top flight match didn't involve basketballs. I know you're a big basketball fan.
No, that match stunk. No, I like basketball.
That was,
I didn't need that match. That match was annoying on all levels.
That match was very annoying, but the original match was great, and it was mainly great because of the closing stretch between Fox and Kenny, which was off the charts and kept you guessing, even if you have been watching these two guys for 15, 20 years like we have, and still they had us biting on near falls and jumping off our couch. And yeah, just great work at the end of that match from those two guys. Kenny is Kenny feels a bit like MJF in that he's a bit of like an attraction nowadays. It's like, especially because he's missed so much time with injury and stuff, and now when Kenny's out there, it feels like, there's so many guys he hasn't really got to hook it up with to any great degree, and that was really evident in the match this week, where there was like a bunch of guys on the two teams opposite where it's like, oh, I want to see more of Kenny with this person or that person. Like, how cool would a Kenny versus Daniel Garcia singles match be? So there's a lot that they can still do with Kenny. Who knows what condition his body's in? The guy is like perpetually working. Every time he opens his mouth or writes something, you literally cannot be sure.
It doesn't stop everybody from deciding every time they can. We should know better, but most people do not know better. So yeah, every time he says something, they go, "Oh my God, he said this and he said that."
And even if it's not like, oh, he's purposely trying to work people, or even if it's not like a situation like that, where obviously most situations it is that kind of thing, but there are times where it's just like Kenny's kind of a unique dude, and he'll just kind of talk in ways and use words in ways that are just, I don't know, he's a hard guy to take literally.
Right, he doesn't speak in like absolutes. He's just kind of like whatever he's saying, he's just kind of saying. It's like, a stream of consciousness sometimes that he says, but then people will just hone in on every single word and every single thing and go, "Oh my God, he said this and he said that." And it's like, you shouldn't not take him serious, but you should understand who's delivering the message, and then maybe it'll be a little bit easier to interpret what he's saying.
Yeah, so I hope we still get a lot of great stuff from Kenny this year. I hope he is in good condition to do so, because there's like a whole Takeshita story arc there to be had, and God, think of how amazing those matches could be. Like, oh, imagine a singles match between those two. Like, imagine if we get a full-on feud with the Blackpool Combat Club that was teased at the end of Dynamite. Like, imagine the Kenny and Claudio exchanges harkening back to Ring of Honor in 2008. Let's do it. Like, I am all in on Kenny versus Claudio in any shape or form. So yeah, it's I would love nothing more than to see enough Kenny stuff this year that I can have him as one of my top contenders for the very top of this list when it comes to the end of the year.
So my number 5, you mentioned him a little bit earlier when you were talking about these CMLL guys, and it's Soberano Jr. is the guy to me who has stood out head and shoulders above most of the other guys in CMLL, and that's nothing against the other guys in the company, but for some reason, like you mentioned Templario, who was just like, it worked for you. Soberano Jr. is that guy for me where I'm just like, man, like, and I kind of knew that he was talented for a while, but something about this year
has a swagger.
Yeah, there's something about him now, man, that's just like, hold on a minute, this guy, he's grabbing my attention, and I'm like, yeah. If you notice, my top 10 list is also guys that just exude, like, it's maybe not just always like the in-ring output, but also just like these guys feel like they own a room, they feel like stars or whatever. That's a bigger reason why Julio is my number 10, and a bigger reason why Soberano Jr. too, because he just comes out and he's just owning rooms right now, and I thought he was the standout of Triple Mania for me. And the standout of a lot of the other CMLL stuff that I've seen. Or Fantastica Mania. What did I say? Triple Mania. No, nothing stands out from Triple Mania. I'm not watching any of the real Triple Manias or the fake Triple Manias this year. I'm done.
When Vampiro farts.
Yeah, that's the only thing I remember about those. But the Fantastica Mania, he was the standout for me. The match with Teton was, I think, my favorite match of the entire tour. And then he came back the next night and had that match with Hechicero that I loved as well. So I was like, man. And then, I watched these out of order. And then I was like, all right, I got time. Let me watch the show on the 26th or whatever. And that's when I then saw the match that you were talking about, the Dookie, Hechicero, Templario versus Desperado, Mystico, and Soberano Jr. And that match is fucking spectacular, and I'm like, God damn, this guy's doing it again. And there is a Templario match from January, I want to say.
It's like the 3rd or 4th or 6th.
Yeah, it's very early in the. I forget when it is, but that's another match that I wrote down as like, yes, this is good. And that was one of the first ones when people were like, just watch like whatever you can find. Watch singles matches from CMLL, like watch the Lightning matches if that's what your vibe is, and you'll find ones that you like. And that was one of the first ones that I saw in my rewatching of or trying to catch up with CMLL, and I was like, whoa, hold on a minute. And it spoke to exactly what you said. Templario, I was like, whoa, I never thought anything of this guy. And then I was like, Soberano Jr., I'm like, holy crap. And then this year has just continued for Soberano to really stand out for me. So he's number 5 on my list.
Potential quick sidebar, do you have any other CMLL guys here?
I don't have any more in my top 10, no.
Okay, so then what I want to do is just quickly get your opinion on a name that I think Case Lowe, the aforementioned Case Lowe, will be devastated that we haven't included, because I know he thinks extremely highly of this wrestler, and he has them as in the running for Wrestler of the Year so far. That is Mystico. Rich, I posed the question to you because I cannot figure this out for the life of me. Is Mystico the best bad wrestler ever, or the worst good wrestler ever?
Oh, wow. That is a hell of a question. As you were mentioning that, I think I'm on the best bad wrestler ever, because he's not good, but he also rocks. I think that's where I'm going to go. I think that's where I'm like, as you were mentioning it, I was like, I don't really like Mystico, but god damn, that guy carries himself. Like I said, this, like my top 10 was a lot of dudes that like carry themselves like superstars. And that guy carries himself like he is the number 1 superstar in professional wrestling. And you kind of have to buy into it, because the guy just exudes like, I'm the fucking man and this is my world. And then you're like, all right, yeah, this is your world, man. And then like, his matches are fine. Like they never really stand out to me all that much. No, I that's interesting how you pose that question, but I believe I am going to plant my flag in he is the best worst wrestler ever, or the best bad wrestler ever, however you pose that question.
Yeah, I think I feel the same, because he's like, he does so, like, I think he's a bad wrestler in the sense that he does so many things that are like bad for a wrestler. Like he'll take a move and he'll just completely not sell it, but not in a firing up, no selling kind of way that adds to the story. He'll just not register it because he's like thinking of what he's going to do next or whatever. It's like just these random weird things that he that you'll see in his matches where it's like, what planet is this guy on?
Right? He kind of stinks, but he's also at
the same time it's also like so much fun, and it's like, and he does things that like look so cool as well, and sometimes stuff doesn't get strung together in the way that makes a lot of sense. There's not much flow or structure, but at the same time, it's just this wild ride that's a lot of fun. And the big thing is he's got such a huge audience connection. He's such a star to the audience that there's always such heat.
Yeah.
And he's getting such reactions that, he has some great output this year. That Stuka Jr. match is phenomenal. It is my CMLL match of the year from January 24th.
Yeah, that match does rule.
That was, and he was very good in that, but generally I thought Stuka Jr. was the star of that show. But yeah, he looked
Kento Miyahara, my number 4, as I mentioned, underrated. I think he's been great this year. The tag match with Nomura versus Nomura and Aoyagi was tremendous. The singles match with Aoyagi I mentioned in early February was great. And then the match against Nagata, Yuji Nagata, was just, if you have not seen that match, Kento Miyahara and Yuji Nagata, go out of your way to watch that. But keep an eye on All Japan. Alan mentioned a little bit earlier with Naruki Doi, and we mentioned a little bit earlier with the crowds coming back to All Japan and how so much of that has felt like it's energized that company, and the crowds being energized by, the wrestlers and being able to make noise has just made that company feel like completely different. Kento Miyahara is totally back too. If there was any doubt, like, the guy's been great for a decade now at this point, decade plus, but he's back in a big way, and All Japan's feeling really, really good in the early part of 2023. So yeah, he is my number 4 wrestler of the year thus far. All right, Alan, we got you back fully?
I hope so.
Yeah.
My number 4 is Hangman Page, and I think I'll come to Hangman in a second. But since you're talking Miyahara, I'll give you Miyahara thoughts first because he's my number 3. Just like, I don't think I can add much to what you said and what we talked about earlier, but the guy is, he did so much to keep All Japan going before 2020 that it was like he was already so important to that company. And then when you see how he kept that ship afloat, and it's really only now where we see them sort of doing well again, and it's just, you have to think, if he wasn't around, if he wasn't there these last couple of years, like, would this promotion even still exist? It's like Miyahara, he is the heart and soul, the effort, and like, I think he's rubbed off so much. You mentioned Yuma Aoyagi. He's rubbed off so much on a guy like Yuma Aoyagi, and that's rubbing off in turn into guys like Atsuki Aoyagi and Rai Hayato, and now the other new young guys they have coming up. Miyahara is just a leader by example in that promotion, and yeah, his output this year with the Nagata match, the Aoyagi match, even though it wasn't like a 4.5-star match or anything, his performance in that Tokyo Dome match, where it was his first ever Tokyo Dome appearance, and he just, we've talked a lot about owning rooms on this show. There's a difference between owning a room and owning the Tokyo Dome room. And when he was out there with a bunch of other big names, and he was the star of the show, that said a lot about him and his abilities and his star power. And yeah, he's a guy that I thought I had kind of moved past a little bit in terms of being excited by.
Same.
And boy, has he just said to me, don't forget about me. And outstanding stuff from Miyahara. And I think he'll be at the rate he's going with the Champion Carnival around the corner, and with this Noah program he's in, I see this guy being a fixture now.
Oh, that Noah stuff, man. We're talking about like hatred, like real, like cool ass, like old Japan hatred stuff. Like, oh my God, that's like Kano being like, the fuck is this place? This place is disgusting. Like, this is a joke. Like, what is that? And then Kent, oh my God. Yeah, I cannot wait to see those guys muck it up. I cannot wait.
Show. Because yesterday's show, he has this great 10-minute match with Yoshiki Inamura. And then at the end of the match, he's cutting this promo calling out Masa Kitamiya, his former Kensuke Office Diamond Ring dojo brother, is a guy who's been the focus. He's kind of been ignoring Nakajima's existence.
Yeah.
But, he doesn't want to give Nakajima the time of day, but he is very much honing in on Kitamiya and like calling him out. I love the when he started shouting after the Tokyo match, and he was just shoot names. He was like, Mitsuhara Kitamiya, who are you to be? You're out there commentating. Why are you commentating my match? Who are you to be commentating anything?
Yeah.
And so he was in the ring cutting this promo, and two of the young guys, Anzai first of all, and then I forget the kid's name, purple tights, kicky kind of guy. He charges the ring then after Anzai, and they both cut these fired up promos where they're screaming. And I was like, and then Miyahara is like he seems kind of cool with whatever they're screaming about, and he's enjoying their intensity. Basically, they were like, I want to fight Noah alongside you. And the other guy was like, no, I want to fight Noah alongside you. And Miyahara was like, how about this? How about you both fight Noah alongside me? So I'm going to bring the two of you to the next big show, and we want Kitamiya and any tune of his Noah pals, and 6-man tag, and then they all throw their hands up in the air, and yeah, it's like, sign me up. I'm already sold.
Yeah, we're back. We're like that. Once we start getting those sort of feuds and like these promotion versus promotion things, and it really matters, and everybody kind of hates each other like that, and then we're fully back. And I feel like we're pretty damn close, man. We're getting there. There's been enough collaboration happening, and obviously a lot of those, collaborations in Japanese wrestling happen when like things are not going great. Like a lot of times it's like, hey, we need to make business, we need to draw, so let's have these shows, but they result in some really, really cool stuff. So I'm all in on it, man. I love it. And Kento being the shit stir for All Japan, Noah having enough shit stirs to they have plenty. They're not short of shit stirs in pro wrestling Noah, but that could be a really special feud, and especially like you said, once Kento and Nakajima really get in there and start doing stuff, then it's just next level, that feud, and people that know the history and stuff, that's just gonna it's gonna hit them on a completely different level. So let's do my top 3 here. Number 3 for me. You mentioned him a little bit earlier. I'll mention him again here. Bryan Danielson. Not done yet. Don't slap. The finished on Bryan Danielson just yet. Great matches against Rush. Great match great match against Takeshita, and then the all-timer against MJF. I mean, he has been stellar this year, and I hope that he is back pretty soon in AEW, because this feels like we're on a real great level for him. And I think his work, you were talking about how AEW's work is like standing out this year in terms of the wrestling that they've had. I think a lot of it is Bryan Danielson wrestling like 20-minute fucking incredible matches on television for like a couple weeks straight. Really pumped that up a little bit, because you were getting like high level wrestling like every single week on Dynamite because of Bryan Danielson.
And against such different opponents.
Yeah.
Like think of the guys he went through. Timothy Thatcher, Konosuke Takeshita, Bandito, Brian Cage. Is real different kind of cats he was in there with, and just delivering each time. To your tastes may vary depending on kind of like who you liked or whatever, but I think there's, with those collection of matches, there's going to be one for literally every type of, like, if you're a wrestling fan and you can't find one of those matches to enjoy, then you could probably give up on.
You're lost, yeah. You're just lost, yeah.
Did you have a favorite of them, Rich?
I think, man, you know what? That's such a hard question, because, like you said, they were all so different and so unique that it feels weird being like, oh yeah, which one? Probably the one with Roosh, I would say, but
the Roosh match, I didn't even think of that, which is like the most standout in terms of different.
Yeah, I think that's my pick. But like, honestly, if someone told me any of the other ones, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. If you told me Takeshita, I'd say, yeah, fine with me. I think I'm picking the Roosh one though, just because, like you said, it was so different and so unique.
Yeah, I think I will too. I feel just disgusted on myself for forgetting it. But yeah, that and Takeshi are kind of like my 1 and 2. Then the Bandito match, and then the Thatcher match was fun for what it was. The cage match was very much part of the story. So yeah, it was just a great run, and he obviously hit the Iron Man match. But then also don't forget the tag he had with Moxley against Top Flight, which was just outstanding, really, really good stuff. So yeah, it's been a hell of a good year for Bryan Danielson. He is my number 2.
There you go. All right.
I had him as number 1 until last night.
Whoa, somebody took it over. All right, we're going to find out here. So my number 2 is Okada. I'm all in on this new Okada, and it's led to some great matches so far this year. The match with Shingo that we mentioned a little earlier, the match with Kiyomiya, which is like one of my favorite Okada matches in a long, long time, just because it was so different. And then goes over the top even more with that tag match against Goto and Yoshihashi. I don't know if you've seen that one, the Bishamon versus Okada and Tanahashi, but I thought that was just great pro wrestling. Just it speaks to New Japan Pro Wrestling and what you get from a promotion that thinks about how they book and thinks about wrestlers and just thinks about stuff like the little things about wrestling that like so many other promotions just don't give a shit about or would think is not worth their time and no one's going to care and who cares or whatever. This is a company that cares about the booking of stuff, and it's like you get Okada and Tanahashi in the ring.
But they do all that, but they have not been applying it to their tag team division, essentially,
right?
For and we've been crying out for it. It's like been the one thing we can point to all during the golden period of, if only there was more of an emphasis on building to and having great tag team matches involving the big stars, and not just having Guns and Gallows versus Tenkoji or for the millionth time, or not to throw poor Tenkoji under the bus, but yeah, you know. It's what we really wanted, and here was an example. And what they've been doing with Bishamon in general is an example of now them applying that same level of thoughtfulness and care to these tag titles, and nothing more than the fact that you came on here, Rich, and fully expected, and rightly, fully expected Goto and Yoshihashi to lose those belts straight away after winning them, because that's what we've seen so often with the tag champions that you think might have momentum, and they're like, no, screw that momentum.
Yeah,
let's just
God is going to win these titles again. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa are going to win the titles again.
Exactly. Right. We've seen it so many times. You were dead right to expect it, and the fact that it didn't happen, and then they go and have this match, which is such an un-New Japan match, and to main event the anniversary show with it, like it was a statement by Gedo saying, hey, doing something different here. And for those of us like me, I'm holding my hand up, who have said, Gedo is I do not take away from anything he did as a booker from 2007 to 2019, but we have seen the tropes of Gedo booking for a little too long, and maybe he might want to start changing things up, get some different voice in the room, whatever it might be. But he's doing something different here, and I have to hold my hands up and be like, he's doing what I asked in terms of one of the big things that he hadn't been doing. And this Bishamon, I'm gonna make it a point to watch every single Bishamon tag match going forward for the rest of the year, because it has potential to be the best storyline New Japan have going in 2023. The crowds are into it. Like, the crowd were going insane for Yoshihashi and Goto. During the match, after the match, on the microphone, these guys are a star team of two very much non-star individuals.
Yeah.
We've talked about all these guys that go into a room and own the room and are stars. These are the two guys who just get that you don't notice in the room, or can't, or walk into the wrong room, or
right, or the door slams on them when the star walks in, like cartoon style, like the door opens and they get caught behind the door. Like that's Yoshihashi. He's like about to open the door, and then Okada bursts through it and just knocks over the door, and Yoshihashi's like, the door closes and he's like a pancake on the back of it or whatever. That's Yoshihashi. But he closed the anniversary show. Like they closed the anniversary show with Hashi in the ring, like serenading the fans, and the fans loving it. Like nobody, I mean, you would have never been able to think that 3 years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago, 5 years. I mean, it would have been unheard of. But yeah, it speaks to just how carefully booking the tag division, how much that it can work. And yeah, like that match we talked about last week on the Flagship, but I think it was just a masterclass in tag team booking, because it would have made all the sense in the world to just have Okada and Tanahashi win the matches because they're Okada and Tanahashi and they're the stars or whatever. But they're not a tag team. They don't know what they're doing. They're not,
Okada Okada in particular was, and we are talking Okada here. He was great in getting that story across. I'm kind of out of my depth here,
right?
As in a big tag, like these guys kind of have our number, and like it was. Like it was subtle. Like it was subtle.
Oh, he was in like the wrong place a lot of times. He wasn't like right on the money. And again, like you might think like, oh man, that was a little sloppy. But like people that it wasn't sloppy in the sense that like he was missing spots, but it was sloppy. It was a good in the sense that he was like a sloppy tag partner with Tanahashi. They just were not in the right place at the right time. They just did not have that it thing that good tag teams, really, really do have. So no, I thought it really, 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 it was just another notch in Okada's great year. Alan, you didn't get to talk about Hangman. I apologize about that. You want to discuss Hangman?
I realized, and then I was like, do I have anything really I need to say about Hangman that people don't already know? He's like a super hard worker that's had a bunch of intense, incredible matches with Jon Moxley, including one of the most memorable stipulation matches ever on the pay-per-view. He is low on the list of guys I'd like to wrestle, because he looks like he's no day at the picnic, no day at the beach. He's no picnic in there. But as a fan, I enjoyed the hell out of watching him wrestle. But Rich, ultimately in this feud with Jon Moxley, he has to take a back seat, because to me, the star of the feud has been my number one wrestler of 2023 so far, the current leader in my power rankings, Jon Moxley, who I said took over the number one spot last night as I watched him doing Moxley things, as I like to say, during the course of that 6-man tag against Dark Order, which just, to me, was a match that just over-delivered so much. And Moxley just walking around just as he's getting across this kind of heel vibe, just the way he's carrying himself is endlessly entertaining to me, in addition to what a workhorse he's been in terms of quantity and quality. Everything from the sprint main event with Uno to the tags versus Top Flight. He had the one with Danielson, the one with Claudio. The matches with Hangman, there have been 3 in this calendar year so far. I'm forgetting something else, but yeah, he has done so much great stuff this year. Jon Moxley is, I just keep feeling we've got to okay, now it's he's going to take this break. He's had this incredible run. He's just been on this incredible run since the doors opened in AEW. The guy has not stopped, bar those few months he was in rehab, and it's God, everything before and after that, he has just been immense. And I can't take my eyes off the guy when he's wrestling. He's just tremendous. Even if he's not physically doing something in terms of a move in the match, if it's just him making a facial expression or him walking around the ring, or he's turning into. He's kind of turning into having some of what made Terry Funk so great in his older years. Just this performer that you can't take your eyes off, no matter what he's doing on screen, if he's the legal man, if he's outside the ring, if he's whatever he's doing, he just captures your attention.
Yeah, the show like orbits around him when he comes out. It's just that he's got that aura, that pull, that gravity, that like Terry Funk. Yeah, that's the best comp that you can bring out. Is like when Terry Funk came out, it was just like, well, fuck, here we go. Like something's happening, and I gotta watch. Like, and you couldn't, no matter what's happening, you can't take your eyes off of him. Even if he's not the legal man in a tag match, it's like he's fucking around with the fans, or he's out there yelling about somebody, or he's jumping up on the ring apron or something. There's just that gravity that certain guys have, and yeah. Nobody has it right now like Jon Moxley has it. So that's a great poll. He was on my honorable mentions, and I kind of feel bad by not putting him on my top 10 as you described him right there. When you described him right there, I was just like, God damn it, I should have had Moxley on my top 10, but I didn't. So I feel bad. But he maybe that should have been my 11 instead of Fuminori Abe. But you know what?
I think who your number one might be now, because everyone on my list. Yeah, I'm dead curious now. I'm probably missing someone really obvious.
No, it's very obvious. Yeah, it's Masato Tanaka. No, I'm kidding. It's not Masato Tanaka. It's Will Ospreay who.
Of course.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, come on. I know you haven't watched. You said you haven't watched a lot of the Rev Pro stuff. I'm even behind. Like I get behind on great Ospreay matches because like they just happen so frequently. So like 2 weekends ago, I didn't have a chance to and Rev Pro was a little late about uploading stuff, and this week was a little bit busy. And then people are like, oh, you got to watch that Luke Jacobs versus Will Ospreay match, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll watch it. And then like everyone's like, no, you really got it. And it's like, oh man, that was already a couple weeks ago. Like, and it already feels like in that time since then we've had the Mark Davis match on the New Japan Cup that was great, and he's had a lot of other stuff that's really, really, really been great. There's this Tristan Archer match. I don't know if you've heard of this one. Joe was talking about it, and a few other people have talked about it. From Reichs. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
From a French promotion, I know Ian Hamilton has been recommending that highly to a lot of people.
I got to catch up. Like so really I guess I'm not glad that he's hurt, but it's like, oh, good, I can actually get up to speed on like the great Will Ospreay matches he's had this year, because I haven't even seen the Luke Jacobs one, and I've heard that's like tremendous. I think I think Dave gave it like 4 3/4 or whatever. So it's just like it's been just highly, highly touted. But you had the Taichi match, which rocked, the Mark Davis match, which was great from the New Japan Cup. You add in the Omega match at the beginning of the year, and then just a bunch of other sporadic tag matches throughout the. I mean, he's just, when you have his match as good as that Omega Ospreay match, and a match that's as good as Taichi and Will Ospreay, and one that I liked as much as Mark Davis and Will Ospreay, it's just like, yeah, the guy, he belongs in that. He is just so clearly to me the best wrestler in the world that he's my number one until anybody's very obviously knocks him off the pedestal, and I just don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon. Well, it might happen now because he's hurt. So if he doesn't wrestle for a couple months, that's going to be the opportunity. But like, he's my default number one, and until he just stops having great matches, he's going to remain my number one.
Well, I definitely enjoy doing this because I think we were able to see like some real differences in our list, especially in the back half of the list. I think we covered a lot of names across a lot of different parts of the world, and it's I think we hit on a lot of the if your promotion or the type of wrestling you like wasn't represented here in this discussion, let us know about it, because
for sure.
I think between me and Rich, I think we've already covered a good amount of the wrestling worldwide, and if there's really good stuff or a really great wrestler having a great year that we haven't mentioned, I'd be curious in hearing who that is. If there's like there's places like DDT, which I haven't watched really any of this year, but I feel like I would know about it if there was like a wrestler having a tear up year in DDT. But I'm not really hearing about that, so I'm assuming there's not.
Yeah, I haven't seen much buzz at all, and usually there would be buzz, and I would check in a little bit with DDT, and I watch hyped matches, but I feel like there's just been nothing this year from people.
It's a shame because they're coming over for Mania Weekend, and what's also a shame is that like Higuchi has been given these kind of crappy matches for WrestleMania Weekend. Whoever booked those is a lot to answer for. I hope we get to see DDT kind of do some good stuff. Because they have a lot of great talented guys that I really like. It's just people struggle to get momentum for me in DDT.
Yeah,
so they'll kind of get a little bit of a push and a few good matches, and then they'll kind of enough focus will be taken off them or whatever. And yeah, it's tough. So there's still some promotions in Japan that I would like to see bounce back a bit more still, but they can't all be All Japan.
Right, yeah, they have sprung forward to my list of like have to watch All Japan. But yeah, if there's anything that we haven't mentioned, there's a wrestler that maybe stands out to you that we didn't give any love to or that we haven't watched yet, let me know. Let us know, definitely, and then we'll be able to hopefully be able to check it out and at least try to cover some of those blind spots there. But so yeah, we only have we got about another 20 or so minutes, which I think is going to be more than enough. You know what, Alan, two things here. I mean, a quick little. We don't have to go back like the actual WrestleMania weekend schedule this year. I'm going to do that in a later show. That's fine. I don't need to torture you with like the bit of here I am listing shows that all sound terrible and don't sound like they matter at all. Instead, I think let's maybe take a minute to talk about WrestleMania weekend and what it sort of meant to us. But before we do that, though, real quickly, I just want to do this, and I don't normally do this. This is not something we usually do on the flagship. And I did it on our Discord as well, but there is a rare circumstance of which I really can't get into the details of, but there is a fundraiser. There's a GoFundMe that has a little extra significance to me and to my family. So if you can, not a big deal, but if you have any spare amount of money that you can offer this month, if you can consider donating to this, I'll put the link in the description. It is also on our Discord as well, the flagship Discord. Or if you just go to GoFundMe and look it up, it's help Byron Myers get a heart transplant. It's BYRON Myers, and it's somebody that's trying to get a heart transplant and needs to raise money to get that heart transplant, or else they don't get a heart, and then of course you know what happens after that. So Byron Myers, help Byron Myers get a heart transplant. Again, I'll put a link in the description. Again, I don't usually do this. It's a very rare circumstance, and I can't get into why the significance of it. But yeah, if you do have a little bit of extra money this month, if you can consider donating to it, that would it would mean a lot to me and the nurse and the rest of the family.
Rich,
as well.
I will fill in what Joe would do right now, and that is tell you not to be so apologetic about doing such a nice thing. You have nothing to be anxious about over this. I think that's a lovely thing. That I hadn't noticed. You mentioned this before. This is the first time hearing of it. So good on you for this. Sounds like a great cause. And yeah, it's for me as someone who has like my own health issues and get into the weeds of it. Like I've had to learn about transplantation and stuff like that. And like I'm in the very lucky position where like with our I don't even have to dip into my insurance for this type of stuff. Like it's all within the public healthcare system here in Ireland. And any like transplantations are all they're all taken care of essentially, like from beginning to end, every aspect of it. And it's there is no the actually having to like raise money or anything like that. It's just not a thing that I can even imagine having to deal with on top of the issues of dealing with medical issues themselves.
Yeah, having a failing heart, of having a heart that no longer works. Yeah, and then they need to raise money to get another heart.
It's so sad to me that that's something I am hearing about. What superstar Billy Graham and his wife are going through.
Oh yeah. To relate that to wrestling,
like, the expense, the monetary expense side of like it breaks my heart when I hear about people in America that just get bankrupted by having to just keep themselves alive. It's a horrible thing. Like because nobody chooses to be sick. Nobody chooses to find themselves in a position where they need a surgery or need to go on life support or whatever, and then to have to pay so much for that it's really heartbreaking. And then God bless good, well-functioning public health systems that I know they're like even ours has its flaws. The NHS in the UK has its flaws. There's certainly the case, but there's it's tough when you see like how I think you get the extra element as well with the insurance companies, I guess, not having the greatest of reputations.
That's one way to put it for sure. that is kind of a way to put it. Yes,
making a bad situation worse for people, so it's heartbreaking. And help in this instance, it sounds like a really worthy cause.
All right. Well, thank you so much for indulging me in that again. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description. But it's Byron Myers, Byron Myers. It's on GoFundMe. So, all right. Actually, you know what? Do you want to, we have a little, we can go a little over. It's a spectacular. We can go a little bit. So let's do a brief WrestleMania weekend thing. And then
if you edit out all the times I fell off the line.
Right. Then it's essentially, it's less than 3 hours at that point for sure. We can go a little over. It's the St. Patrick's Day Spectacular. You're off tomorrow, right? Not, but that's fine. You don't have work tomorrow, so you're good to go. But no, we'll go a little bit longer here. But real quick, I wanted to check in on WrestleMania weekend. And obviously this year we're going to do our normal big thing that we do here on the Flagship, where I get a bunch of members of the Voice of Wrestling staff and we all preview as many of these shows as possible. It is starting to get kind of ridiculous. I mean, there is so many goddamn shows on this WrestleMania weekend that I can't even believe it. I was doing the WrestleMania weekend's memory write up for flagshippatreon.com about, the 2016 weekend that you talked about a little bit earlier that you were not able to go to. And it was like, it had 15 shows. And I remember being at the time like, whoa, there's 15 shows. Like, oh man, what are you going to do? And there was like, Evolve was kind of at the same time as Ring of Honor, which was also kind of at the same time as NXT. And it was like, oh my God, like, how do you choose? And that's why we eventually did like the Joe Lanza Path to Glory or whatever of like, all right, here's the shows you're going to have to go to. I know you're going to have to miss a show, but it's okay. And now it's like, dude, there's 80 shows going on this weekend. Like, you don't want to see half these shows, and like, you're not going to be able to see any. They're all over the place. The
big problem it creates for me is how burnt out the wrestlers are.
Oh yeah. And it comes across with the work as well. And I went to the 2019 Mania weekend in New York. And like, I pretty much didn't see any great matches. I mean, there were some good shows. There's some shows that I enjoyed, but by and large, like, I didn't see a lot of great matches because everybody. I mean, I saw Pentagon Jr. live like 9 times that weekend, and like, he was taking the same routes that we were taking. He was like bouncing between the shows that we were bouncing to, and I was exhausted, and I was just sitting there. You know what I mean? All I had to do was sit and watch a wrestling show. That guy had to wrestle, and I was yawning and looking at my phone and going, "Oh man, geez, I'm getting really tired." And then like, he would come out, and I was like, "This guy can't." And then he would go out there and he would like, work at 25% speed, do the glove thing, do Sierra Miedo, get in and out as quick as possible. And it was like, man, what a bummer that like, one of the great wrestlers in the world is just phoning it in because he's got 20 bookings this weekend. And that really does become a problem with this current setup that we have.
Yeah. And especially if they, if they're like, okay, I'll just, I'm going in front of this crowd, I'm going in front of that crowd. I'll do my spot that I do. I'll do my shtick. It's like, generally it's going to be the same people, like you said, Rich, going around. So it's the same people watching you on these different shows. And if you've got people watching at home, they're probably watching all the different shows. So it's like, it's probably better to vary it rather than like doing the same spots in the same match on all these different, like, it's not like you're hitting a new audience when you do like Game Changer on Friday night and then WrestleCon on Saturday afternoon. Like, it's the same audience in town. It's the same people watching at home. So yeah, it's not like where you're, I don't know, going working a show in Chicago and then going working a show for a completely different audience in Tokyo. It's like where you can do the same things and it's hitting a different audience. It's like, no, you need to be able to mix things up a bit and put some mental energy into this, but these guys can't have any mental energy to give because their mental energy is all spent on racing around town and making sure they have their t-shirts to sell and making sure, like, it's just, it gives me stress and anxiety thinking about it, let alone being a wrestler doing that I can only imagine. So
yeah, particularly this year is going to be, I mean, it was hard in New York. And like, I know that like shows had to just get completely rewritten because guys were caught in traffic. And now this year you got, Los Angeles traffic, which is not good at all. And that is going to be, it's going to be a wild weekend of people doing double bookings and all over the place and different. It seems like people are mostly like wrestlers tend to be mostly in kind of home bases this year, where like they're all just going to be like wrestler X is going to usually be doing the collective all weekend and not bouncing around between all the other ones, but there's still going to be enough movement that things might become a little bit of a disaster. But again, we'll talk about current WrestleMania weekend later on the Flagship. We got a couple weeks until that's happening. Starting to record some of those shows over the next few days. But yeah, but I want to talk about memories, because like I said, I'm doing stuff at flagshippatreon.com right now, going over some of the great matches and moments in WrestleMania weekend history and memories that I have of that weekend. Now, you had mentioned there at the top, I just said I had been to one WrestleMania weekend my entire life. I had watched a bunch on video or live, or hell, when the video was actually working, which was also very rare during the early days. But you said you had been to like, what, 7 straight except for 2016, or were you at 7 straight and then missed 2016 and then picked it back up?
I did 2012, 13, 14, 15. So I did 4, and then I missed 1, and then I did 17, 18. So I've done 6 total with 1 skipped in the middle.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's awesome. So like what maybe quickly, what sort of memories do you have of that weekend? Obviously there's some personal memories that I'm sure stand out more so than others that you can divulge if you'd like, but it's just what kind of, for people that maybe are experiencing it for the first time or don't really know what WrestleMania weekend used to be, how can you kind of describe what that weekend really felt like?
It just like, for me, it was like the first one I went to was in Miami in 2012, and like a big thing for that was like that was my first time going away on holidays with Sarah, and it was like my first like big holiday as an adult, like where I went somewhere far away and not just to Germany or the UK for a wrestling show for a day or two. Like this was like a big proper holiday, so it wasn't like, but it was great because back in 2012, there wasn't like what we've just talked about with just being engulfed in shows. It was like, oh, okay, we've got a Dragon Gate USA show today, and there's a convention going on in the same hotel, and that would be like it. And so there was like, but that was like during a period where Dragon Gate USA was awesome. So it was like I went to 2 Dragon Gate USA shows. I went to the convention, the WrestleCon convention show, and then went to WrestleMania itself. And I think that was it, unless I'm forgetting something. But it was really cool. It was my first taste of kind of being around WrestleMania weekend hotel, where there's like, hey, here's New Jack. He's buzzing around, and he's going around with Pinky Sanchez looking for weed. There's Kevin Sullivan at the bar, and here's Vader in the pool with Masato Yoshino. And
that is, for all the wrestling, like the most underrated part of WrestleMania weekend is just like, you're just there with like wrestlers, and they're just descending on this town. And even in New York City, like walking the streets, you're just like, oh, there you go. There's like, I was just like on some random street, and all of a sudden, like a wheelchair hit me in the back of the foot, and I was like, God damn it! Like, what the hell, man? Come on! And I look around, and the guy goes, sorry. And it's Lex Luger. And I'm like, what the fucking Christ? Like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I'm just walking the streets of New York City, like this very big town, and I get hit in the back of my leg by Lex Luger in a wheelchair. And it's like, there's only one place on earth and one time in the year that can happen to you, and it's WrestleMania weekend. You know what I mean? Like, or like we were in whatever the hotel that the WrestleCon was in, some Hilton or something like that. And I go to the bathroom, and I'm pissing next to Black Toros in the Black Toros gear. You know what I mean? Like, it's absurd. Like, if you ever knew about this, like if you didn't know, like say you went to New York City on April 5th, 2019 or whatever, and had no idea that there was a wrestling thing, you were just like, you know what? Let's go to the Big Apple or whatever. And you walk into this bathroom at this very nice hotel, and like a man in a bull costume walks in and pisses next to you. Like, but you don't think anything of it. Like you said, Masato Yoshino and Vader. Imagine if you went to anywhere else in the world at any other time in the world and those two men were in a pool together. Like, you'd be like, what the fuck is going on? But in WrestleMania weekend, you're like, oh, yeah, there's Masato Yoshino and Vader in a pool together. All right. And then you move on with your day. It's just, that I think is the most underrated aspect of why WrestleMania weekend is still special. For all its faults that it has these days, why it is still a one-of-one event is stuff like that you just it can never happen ever again.
Yeah. And like I was able to see like some really great wrestling back in those earlier years where guys weren't run ragged. Like, just you'd be getting to see great matches with some of the best wrestlers in the world in front of the most hardcore fans in the world, and it was always really awesome. Like, Ring of Honor was putting on big shows like the New York one I went in 2013. We got to have the Kevin Steen Jay Briscoe title match as the main event, and seeing Jay Briscoe win that ROH title for the first time in Hammerstein Ballroom, that was just an incredible memory. And then like racing around after the show, like to get back to New Jersey, and it's like a group of people like with you're somehow leading the way on the New York subways with a group of Americans, including like Brian Alvarez and a bunch of other people. And it's like, why am I the Irish person?
Right, why am I doing this?
Where to go on just all these like memories that you wouldn't get from any other situation, whereas if any other holiday or any other wrestling trip, because it's like, it's a holiday meets a wrestling trip. Like, if I just go to like New Japan Royal Quest, for instance, which I went to and it was great, but you're going on a plane to go see a wrestling show, in and out. If I go to WrestleMania week, I'm going there for a few days. I'm like, there's a lot of other people in this area for the same reason, and it's more of a holiday, more of a vacation, as you guys say, than it is just kind of going away for a wrestling trip. And then, but it's also unlike just going on a vacation, where I've been on some great vacations, and as I know they call you Mr. Vacration for a reason. Like, you are a man who enjoys a good vacation, Rich. But typically on a vacation, you don't get to see many wrestling shows. Now, I know you did get to see one in Iceland, but
Alaska. There was.
Sorry,
no, but you joke, but there was a wrestling show happening in Iceland. But it was like the week. It was like 2 days after we left, and I contemplated like, can we change, like, because this is a 101, like Iceland wrestling, like what is this got to be like? But yeah, it was happening like 2 days after we were leaving, which is just it gutted me that we had to leave.
Heartbreaking. But yeah, it's like vacations, holidays are awesome, but like for us wrestling fans, like having a wrestling show or two thrown in the mix of a trip to Italy or a trip to wherever, Spain, that's gonna be, you wouldn't say no to that. So,
no, hell no.
Like it's just a beautiful combination of two really enjoyable things that come together. And yeah, if you've got a good group of friends or whatever that are also on the trip, that makes it a lot of fun. And as well, for me, being someone that's coming to America from Ireland, it's like getting to meet a load of people, especially like in 2012 and 13, but being my first trips to America, meeting so many people who I have talked to and known and listened to online for so many years. Like I've just these great pictures of me and like Joe Gagney from 2013. I have this great picture of me and Gabe and Brian Alvarez in 2012. It's all the great meetings you have with different people that you've just been communicating with for such a long period of time. That was a real cool thing. The Team Dr. Keith photo. I don't know if you've ever seen this, where at the end of the Dragon Gate USA show, again, 2013, Dr. Keith is going around like a maniac, and he grabs bunch of us, grabs me and Gagme and pulls us backstage, and as he wants to do this Team Dr. Keith photograph, and it's like this amazing photo we have of me, Naylor, Joe Gagme, Dr. Keith, and Brody Lee, because Brody Lee was on the Chikara King of Trios team that was in fact called Team Dr. Keith. And it was like things like that are
that's special.
These special moments like that are just super cool. And honestly, if I was to pick one day that's like in terms of like the wrestling, because as you mentioned, there is certain personal things that stand out somewhat, like getting married, which we did on a lovely day in a lovely park in New Orleans in 2018. But in terms of wrestling, the one day that I always think of when I think of WrestleMania week is actually that day of that Team Dr. Keith photo, where because the Miami days were quite relaxed, we'd spend most of the day at the beach and then go for dinner and then go watch a Dragon Gate USA show. It was nice and easy. But the Saturday of 2013 in Jersey, where we got up, we went to Access, where we got to see Sami Zayn, who had yet to appear on NXT TV, taking on Pac, Adrian Neville, in this convention hall with a bunch of people not knowing who they were and not reacting to them, and me just thinking it was so cool, and going around Access. Access, at least in those days, was worth going to twice, I feel was the number. And then after that, it is just very much diminishing returns. I think we went 3 times, but 2 was all we needed to do. But yeah, it was, so like, that was like, it took us through the morning. And then it was on to, I forget the name of the location, but it was the location where WrestleCon, Gabe shows, Shimmer, all this stuff was happening. And we had this awesome Chikara show with Jushin Thunder Liger. Then there was this super long Dragon Gate USA show with Gargano and Shingo going on at like 1 a.m. Then there's $5 wrestling show hosted by Colt Cabana. And like we spent all this time at the WrestCon convention in between as well. It was just this jam-packed day. And I just remember being absolutely shattered by the end of it, trying to get a taxi to get out of there and get back to our hotel. But yeah, it was like, to me, that day embodied WrestleMania weekend. It got like a bit of everything in there, and it was just so much fun. And yeah, all the different, and as people were like showing up, like you had all these wrestlers that were like in different parts of the, like whether they were doing Ring of Honor or whether they were in WWE and on Access, and they were just filtering in and coming through and showing up at different points in the Dragon Gate USA show or during $5 wrestling. It was at this point like 2:30 in the morning that, like, this big hall is just filled up with like a load of people all just kind of chatting in different groups and just hanging out. And it's like you've got it's like talking to Kevin Steen over here and talking to Joe Gagme over there, and all this just amazing energy about the place. It was really cool.
Yeah, I'll remember that from my time is like, I was just walking the halls and just like everybody would like, there'd be somebody that would tap my shoulder and I'd turn around and it's like, hi, it's me from this place. And it's like, holy crap. Like it's just, it was just incredible to meet as many people as I met the one weekend I went, and people from all across the world. I mean, it just hi, how you doing? And like, I felt bad because I didn't have enough time, I felt, to like talk or hang out with all the people that I wanted to. And that's one of my regrets, is that I was like, man, I wish I would have just said, hey, screw this wrestling. Let's just go like hang out. Cause like there was so much wrestling to watch and so many things to do, but then there was so many people, and I was kind of like trying to debate in my own head. Okay, should we skip wrestling and just go hang out with people? But like, I was able to do that in the same way too. And then, there was times where, because it's New York and it was so hard to get around for a lot of the stuff. So it was like, we had where people were hitching rides with us and we were hitching rides with other people and people were getting me into this show and, hey, come sit by me. And it was just like, yeah, it like you said, it's just this weird atmosphere that if you've never done one, I definitely recommend it. For all of its faults, it's a one of a kind experience. It's just, you're never going to meet, and you're never going to be with more wrestling fans that all enjoy wrestling as much as you're going to be that weekend. And yeah, it's not what it was, but I think you could still have a lot of fun with it in a year, just if you know enough people that are going and it's the right location and you try to not overwhelm yourself. Like, I definitely overwhelmed myself when I went. If I ever would go back, I would be like, no, I'm just going to go to like 5 shows and just kind of chill out. Whereas like, I was like, hey, I don't know when I'm going to be back, and I don't know, and I'm glad I did, because obviously the next year was the pandemic, and I haven't been to WrestleMania weekend since then. So we were like, no, we have to, like, from 11 a.m. until 4 a.m. we have to be at wrestling shows, and we did. And then I was completely burnt out. I just like got like physically and mentally exhausted by the time I got back, and I was sick for like a month afterwards. I got like the mania flu because I didn't eat and I didn't sleep. All I did was meet people and watch wrestling, which again, I don't regret doing that, but I would definitely, if I ever did go again, I'd chill out a little bit on that. Matthew Allen in the chat room. The No Dope chat room, Alan says, Mania Weekend memory from 2015 at Evolve 39. Do you know what he's going to bring up here?
I remember the venue. I don't know which. I was at 2 Evolves and the Super Show in that venue. I remember the crazy Gargano versus Galloway match. I remember the crazy Thatcher versus Hero match with them not touching for ages. That could be what he's referring to. But that was the Super Show, now that I think about it.
Yeah. So apparently you got involved in a match. Does this ring a bell?
No.
Okay. It says Mania Weekend memory from 2015 at Evolve 39. I'm looking at this is the main event. Allen distracts PJ Black during his Evolve title match with Drew Galloway. Did not lead to the finish, but it did cost him the match.
Are we sure that was me?
I don't remember this. I feel like I would remember that, but I don't know. I guess Matthew Allen thinks that you cost PJ Black this Evolve title match.
You'll need to give me some video evidence of this, because I do not remember this.
Have you cost PJ Black enough matches in your life that you don't remember which one specifically that was, or
I mean, I was single-handedly responsible for getting him kicked out of Nexus. I am on his side constantly.
But there you go. So that is, just a little bit. I just wanted to do a brief little thing because obviously you're somebody who's been to enough Mania weekends. I thought it'd be worth checking in on. But we'll do the whole Mania weekend schedule and stuff in a week or so.
I will say that there was a difference between the pre-2016 ones and then when I came back again after missing 2016 and I did 17 and 18. Like, you'd start to see the expansion at that point because Progress were over, they were doing shows, Rev Pro were over doing shows.
Yeah, 2017 is really one of the big explosions because you had the influence of all the UK and the European promotions coming over and being like, aha, we're going to run this as well. In addition to Evolve still running, and then, it did feel like 2017 was the beginning of like what we have now, where it's just like everyone that's running a show. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's going to have a show this weekend.
Yeah, but I still think, like, if you were to go back and look at the amount of shows and everything, I think it was a lot more contained. I think 2019 things went crazy in terms of volume, and then last year it was just insane. 2020 was the one that was skipped. 2021 was the one where it was like it was guys getting sick in the ring and all this.
Oh God, yeah, Jesus Christ, yeah.
2022 was like, there was just a lot. It was a lot.
There was a lot, yeah. There was some good. Obviously, you had Ring of Honor, what was great, but there was a lot. That is the best way to put it. And Alan, let me tell you, there is a lot here. I'm just going to do the quick math here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 shows on Wednesday that I have right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 shows on Thursday. Friday is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 19 on Friday. So Thursday is the leader.
Stop.
And then Saturday, everything kind of cools down because then you got WrestleMania. So like nobody wants to run against WrestleMania, but there's still like 6 shows on that day. And then I think 4 or 5 shows on Sunday. But yeah, just the days of
absurd.
yeah, it's a lot. So, but again, we'll do that. But on voicesofwrestling.com, we have all of the WrestleMania matches and events and signings and cons and podcasts and all that sort. That is all listed. Our full schedule is up at voicesofwrestling.com. So if you want to be involved on the weekend, if you want to order the shows, great deal this year on Fight. You don't have to buy the shows individually. If you buy Fight Plus, you're going to get all the Fight shows. So all the GCW, all the collective stuff will be on there. A few other places as well that you can watch different shows. But that is voicesofwrestling.com. Again, the full schedule and all the other stuff. So again, like I said, we're going to get an extension. The network has let us have an extra 15 minutes, Alan. So we're going to go 15 more minutes here. Let's talk about 16 Carat, WXW 16 Carat. Now this, you told me this is your first return to live wrestling in how long? When was the last time you were at live European wrestling?
Well, so I did Tag League in October, so that was my first shows back. But this was my second, and these were the first 16 Carat. It's the first 16 Carat I'd been to since the one that I was going to go to in 2020 that I had to cancel on because of everything that popped up pretty much the week of that Carat. 3 years on. When I was over there for Tag League, it was like there was still. It was okay. Things are they're you could kind of see that like they've gotten through the worst of things and they've come through and they've kept a lot of things. They've kept the spark alive in terms of their audience and having engagement and yeah, it was like okay, they managed to keep their heads above water where so many fell, and then at 16 Carat coming back here in March, it was like I was really taken aback, and I heard before going over that they had sold quite a lot of tickets and the business was very strong for these shows. And then when I went in and saw the setup and saw how it looked when all the fans were in there, it was like, wow, it was like, this is visually very, like, if you were just told this was like, okay, this was the 2021 16 Carat if no pandemic ever happened, it would be like, well, WXW is still doing really well. But obviously they had a number of years where like there was a lot of restrictions on them, capacity restrictions, local regulations, all this kind of stuff, and they had to go without fans and they just kind of survived the best way they could. And so like obviously like with most European wrestling, the buzzometer went very low on them in recent years, but what they've managed to do is cultivate a very strong local fan base in terms of fans in Germany and kind of other parts of continental Europe that seem to be younger and like seem to be younger and seem to be fresher to things than someone like me. And that fan base, like, it might not come across on Twitter and stuff in our bubble of how well the promotion's doing in terms of just attendance and audience feedback and stuff. But, you know, it like a lot of guys who I haven't been aware of, I don't see getting a lot of talk and stuff like that. A lot of these guys are very, very over. They have created new stars, and with some of them, I can see the upside. With some of them, maybe not as much. But yeah, there is a strong heartbeat there right now for WXW. Now, in terms of recommending and whatnot, it's difficult for me because I first went over to Germany for 16 Carat in 2009. That is 14 years ago. I went pretty much every year since then up until 2019, through into 2020. So I got to see this thing evolve, and even in seeing what it was like before, like in 2006 and 7 and stuff like that, before I started going myself by just kind of watching WCW videos or DVDs. It has really evolved, and how many other independent promotions do we have that have stood that test of time of 22, 23 years in existence that are still there, and you can kind of see how they've evolved and how they've responded within the wrestling climate as it's changed over that course of time. And I think because I have been there for so long and seen so much stuff, it's hard for things to kind of, it's hard for me to kind of get really into things anymore, without getting into too much of the weeds of this, because I'm too tired to, I think, eloquently get across what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep conversation too.
Yeah,
maybe
it's difficult. But like I would say, if you're someone like me who has been watching wrestling that whole time and has seen the highs of WXW, would be it going back to your 2009, 2010, or going back to the years of like the Euro boom, where like Walter and Ilya were having their matches, and if you're someone that experienced all that, would I say, oh, you should absolutely go watch WXW now, you'd love it? I don't know if you would. I can't guarantee you would. But if you're a newer fan, I mean, I looked around there on, like, say, the Saturday night, and there was like 1,000 people there, upwards of 1,000 people, and a lot of them were in their early 20s, I would say. So you're talking people who before the pandemic were teenagers, and who, when I started going to WXW, were like 8, 9 years old. A lot of those people extremely enthusiastic and loving what they were seeing. So if you're a newer wrestling fan, if you haven't seen a ton of indie wrestling, I would say it's absolutely worth checking out, because WXW, it's always been a way of holding a mirror up to the overall wrestling scene and being a mixture of all kinds of different things happening in the overall ecosystem of wrestling with their own spin on it. So you'll get things that feel like you're watching a WWE, whatever the current WWE style of the day is. You'll see things which are representative of Japanese wrestling. You'll see things that are representative of like a Game Changer wrestling, or whatever the hot US indie of the day is. Like, you'll see all these different flavors under one roof, and I think a lot of newer fans are going to be. It's a reliable, solid promotion to follow along with, I think, because especially if you value, they've obviously made the business decision over the past few years that they need to have an incredibly professional, polished product with high-level production that a WWE fan can check out their shows on the WWE Network and not feel like they're watching some rinky-dink indie, because WXW's production is second to none on the indie scene. It is far and away and it was something that they were getting a lot of credit for during the latter part of the last decade, and managed to keep that standard high, even during a period where, you know, the money coming in, because they couldn't have fans going to shows and whatnot, the money coming in wasn't what it was. Managed to keep that production level high, even on empty arena shows. And as they're back doing full big shows again, they have great production, and they had amazing production at 16 Carat. And I haven't got to see what it looks like on tape yet, but live in the building, just the video screens, they had like a video cube kind of a deal above the ring that was amazing.
Oh wow, that's pretty good for an indie, yeah. or an indie, you know, whatever you would classify them as. That's pretty big.
Yeah, it was just the whole setup was just super professional and polished, and they've got English commentary and German commentary, and it's, you know, they want it to be like this is a promotion in which its origins are in like deathmatch backyard wrestling, and they have come about as far away to the other end of the spectrum from that as you can get. And but for me, as a super critical wrestling fan who has seen so much great wrestling over the course of 30 years, like there's a lot of the wrestling that I will see on the shows that, you know, I don't feel meets what I think is like a particularly high standard. So that may be where it falls down for someone like me or you, Rich. But that said, there's, you know, I think there's a lot of guys with a lot of potential that are worth keeping an eye on. And I have to mention because, you know, I think this could be a name that really is, you could be talking about when we're doing power rankings of 2028, and the reverence you've talked about a guy like Will Ospreay. Peter Thiani is a name that people need to know, because he has got things in his skill set right now at a level of his career that was like Will Ospreay in 2014. He's got things in his skill set that Ospreay didn't have in terms of his selling, his just his natural kind of babyface connection. He's almost more like a young Ricky Steamboat than a young Will Ospreay, but the Ospreay comparison's really obvious that people will go to when they see him. But he is a Hungarian wrestler who is like the gem of this Hungarian scene, which has been built from the ground up over the past couple of years by two wrestlers who comprise the Arrows of Hungary tag team, and they have a lot of experience. They're roughly our age, Rich, and they've been around the European scene, and they're both really good guys who have done put a load of effort into creating a new scene in Hungary with young people that all have an incredible attitude and all have incredible work ethic, and they are, like, to me, both on both trips over when I was there in Tag League and when I was here at Carat, one of the things that stood out to me the most was seeing all these Hungarians and their camaraderie and their group spirit, and how much promise and talent there is. And like, only a couple of them were actually on shows, but I'm hearing that a few of them that are like newer have a lot of potential too. But Tiani is the gem, and he's like, you can tell he's like the leader of this group, and he's only like early 20s himself, but he's the star, and he is going to be a big name. He wrestled Akira Francesco on night 2, and he looked every bit on the level of Akira Francesco, and Akira Francesco is,
yeah, it's big praise.
You know, he's a guy that has been phenomenal this year. He's world class, and Tiani looked world class alongside him, and everyone who sees him raves about him. And he's I think he's so far ahead of like a lot of the flyers and stuff like that get a lot of praise in the US, that appear in a lot of GIFs and stuff, because Tiani can do some spectacular things, but he breaks out like the same things that he does and does well, and doesn't stray too far from the bread and butter. But it's his basics, it's his selling, it's his babyface connection. That's the thing that he's gonna build off of, and that's the thing that's gonna be his platform for moving forward. And you can tell he's such an incredible athlete that he's going to be able to add things as he goes and move up levels in terms of doing more explosive things and more eye-catching things, but at the right time. Like he's keeping stuff in his locker. You can tell that's the case, and that's really a smart way to approach it. And I'm super high on him and some of the other young guys that I've seen coming through. There's talent there for sure. So WXW is, I think they've set themselves up really well. They've handled this tumultuous couple of years really well, that they now are going to come out the other end of it, and I think they're going to keep marching forward. And whether they get kind of the attention of like a Voice of Wrestling flagship or a Twitter and whatnot, whether they get what they had in like 2017, 2018, I don't know. But I think as a business doing really well, doing really good shows in Germany and being like the powerhouse of continental Europe, I don't see that stepping back now. I think the fans seem really engaged. The wrestlers they're using seem really engaged. It all seems to be moving forward in a very positive fashion. And it might not be for me fully anymore, but I think it's definitely for a lot of people. A lot of people are going to get a lot of joy out of it going forward. And I suppose that's my analysis of things that I could probably put into better words and make more sense if it wasn't nearly 4 a.m. But that's,
yeah,
that's what you guys will.
We got to get you to bed. So I appreciate you staying up. But no, it's good to know. Yeah, that's essentially what that whole point of that segment was just like, is it safe to kind of go back in the water with WXW? I know it's been, like you said, tumultuous couple of years for a multitude of reasons. And you know, the pandemic combined with speaking out, combined with just a lot of other just weird feelings and thoughts about that entire wrestling scene. And it's, you know, little by little, like Rev Pro, I think, you know, I've still kept one eye on Rev Pro. I know we've talked about it on the flagship, even through the pandemic, we kept an eye on Rev Pro and thought that they did a pretty good job of navigating the uncharted waters that was, you know, the pandemic plus speaking out, where some other companies did not do as well. You know, Progress, obviously terrible, you know, on all levels. OTT, you know, not necessarily the best either, and WXW, you know, just kind of again, like
WXW, like I think they handled all that stuff really well. Like
I agree.
Because they approached it in a very German fashion, you know, like you have the likes of Progress and people in the UK just like trying to ignore that there are issues and just being like, no, everything's fine, everything's great again now.
Right, but being cute wonderful about it, like, no, we got this. No, we have a sheet. Like, we have a piece of paper that we pass around to everybody that says, "Don't be a sex pest." And it's like, well, okay, but like, I think there's bigger issues at hand than just like, you know.
The Germans handled it in a very serious way, and they were in a very open way, and they didn't have a lot of kind of stuff attached to them to begin with. But what they did have, they addressed straight away.
Didn't hide it.
They were very open about it, and then they went on about their business, and they didn't try to act like these things didn't exist. And a great example I will give is that a year or so ago, Marty Scurll was picking up some bookings for random places around Europe. Like he did some show in Poland, I think, and then he got booked for some other scuzzy German promotion, and someone was saying like, oh no, I hope this doesn't mean he's going to be in WXW again or something like that. And one of the it was, I'm sure he doesn't mind me saying, it was Dennis Perkendall, who was one of the higher ups in WXW, who wouldn't normally kind of come out and chime in on something like this on social media, but he just flat out said Marty Scurll would never be, I can't remember his exact words, but it was basically Marty Scurll will never be on a WXW show. You do not need to worry about this. They took that stuff very seriously, they aren't looking to hide from the fact that there were issues, but at the same time, they wanted to move forward in a professional, serious manner and take what steps were needed to do so. And the people running that company now, the people running the school now, from my experience with them all, I trust them very much, and I think it's a company in good hands. And are they going to make some decisions that some of their fan base don't like, or are they in a wrestler that parts of the fan base don't like here and there, or like have a connection to another wrestler that people don't like? Yeah, maybe, but they don't try to hide from stuff either. They will address if they feel it needs being addressed. So they handle things well, like in the way I think Andy Quildan handled a lot of things quite well also, and didn't always get the credit for it. But but in general, for European wrestling, it's been a weird couple of years, but
I think
different promotions are in different places coming out the other end.
Yeah, and I think a point that you brought up a little bit, and we'll kind of close with that, is that there's kind of a different fan base too that maybe isn't as, because Joe and I will always talk about that. Like nobody talks about Rev Pro. Like no, you hear nobody talk about, like in our little circle, in our little bubble or whatever. It's like yeah, but then you watch these shows and they're like packed buildings, and it's like, well, okay, well, somebody must be at these shows, like, but it's probably not the people that we interact with. It's not the people that we talk to. It's not the people that were once very active on social and very active all over the place, going to all the shows and talking about all the shows and meeting up at all the shows and all the things that you kind of got from that scene 5 years ago. Those people are just probably, there's just a bad taste in their mouth, or they've just moved on or whatever, and there probably is just this new generation of fans that we don't interact with in our little bubble, but they're out there and they exist, and there's another bubble that, or they just they're fans that are not on social, whatever it is, but like they exist, they are there because these shows are well attended, there's crowds that are hot, they enjoy the products, they're buying into what a lot of these companies are doing, and it seemed to be kind of the same way with WXW, where, like you said, a lot of people that you didn't recognize or people that you don't remember, but like they're there, and they're a whole new fan base that maybe didn't exist there 5 years ago. And I think that ultimately is what's going to make that scene turn around and get healthy again, is new people, new fans, and people that can kind of move past, realize what happened in before, and be able to move past and kind of maybe hopefully move forward from there without that negative taste in their mouth about everything that did occur.
Yeah, and lastly, Shigehiro Irie winning the whole thing was incredibly heartwarming and a great moment, and a very genuine moment, and it was a great way to end the whole weekend.
It looks really cool. Yeah, I don't know if those are up right now. I'm gonna have to check to make sure they are.
I think the first night went up yesterday, so
okay, cool.
The second night went up today, I'm guessing. By the weekend, I imagine it'll all be up.
Awesome. So that is, look out for that WXW 16 karat gold 2023. Alan, want to thank you so much for obviously staying up very late to do this with us. Longer than I expected us to go, but we had good discussion, so I didn't want to let you go. But I will give the plugs right now for people that want more Allen, Pro Rest Paradise on the PW Torch. You guys got some good deals going on with the PW Torch right now. I know I got an email the other day that if you sign up, you might be put into an entry to get like a year free or something. It was some, I forget the exact idea of it or the exact,
You're more up on it than I am.
Yeah, I think it was something. Again, I apologize. Tell Wade, I apologize for not remembering the exact deal, but it seemed like a good deal. It was like 1 in 10 people that subscribe are going to get like a free month or a free year, something like that. A free month or a free year is a big difference. I should remember what it is, but it's late for me as well. It's even later for you.
I should know what it is.
You just cash the checks. But anyway, that Pro Rest Paradise on the PW Torch, you do an incredible job there. Just really, really fun, unique, and interesting looks at the world of wrestling. And I think that is what's most important. That's what you've always done. Going back to the Dr. Keith Presents stuff on Wrestling Observer and Figure 4, is there's a lot of other wrestling podcasts that talk about a lot of the same stuff over and over again. And rest assured, you do not talk about what everybody else is talking about, and you offer a very, very different show than what everybody else is doing. And it's an important show. And yeah, obviously, if you're a subscriber to the PW Torch, make sure you listen to Pro Rest Paradise. And if you're not a subscriber to the PW Torch, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the PW Torch and listen to the Pro Rest Paradise by Allen. And then there's a lot of other great stuff on the Torch as well. So yeah, subscribe there, PW Torch, Pro Rest Paradise, at Allen4L on Twitter as well. You also pop up on our Discord every so often as well, voiceswrestling.com/Discord. So Allen,
I'm on there a lot more than I am Twitter these days.
Smart. Yeah, everybody should do that too. Delete Twitter and just join our Discord. But Allen, thank you again for staying up pretty late for me on what is now St. Patrick's Day. It was when we started, right? It was already past midnight, I think, when we started.
Yeah, it's been St. Patrick's Day the whole time since I was speaking Irish 8 hours ago.
Yeah, so get some sleep and get to that parade and go drink all that green beer and dye all your rivers green and all your bodies of water green. But no, hopefully you have a good day. And I want to thank you once again for coming on here and doing this show. Again,
thank you, Rich. It's my pleasure.
Allen4L, Pro Rest Paradise, PW Torch. That is it for the Flagship. I'm Rich. That's Allen. We will talk to you guys next time. Take care. Bye.
Music. It's not just part of our daily lives, it's part of our wrestling fandom as well, and it has been for decades. That's where this show comes in. Music of the Mat, the podcast devoted exclusively to the music of pro wrestling, hosted by Andrew Rich. Hey, that's me. Each episode delivers a different topic with a variety of great guests, fun conversations, musical analysis, and of course, a heartfelt pun or two. New episodes drop every other Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast app of choice. Check out Music of the Mat only on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
Do you like wrestling trivia? Then check out the 5-Star Match Game, the Pro Wrestling Quiz Show. I'm Joe Gagney. In every episode, I grill 3 contestants with 5 rounds of power-packed wrestling trivia. We have over 30 evergreen episodes in the archives covering WWE, AEW, Japan, Mexico, and much, 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 much more. Play along at home and check it out today.
Get ready, because Scott's is taking over Daylight Saving Time. It's such a big event that we're calling it Day-Long Saving Time. And now it's got real savings. In fact, it's the biggest deals of the year. Audacious? Absolutely. So don't wait. Stock up early and you'll be able to save up to $20 on Scott's Triple Action and Easy Seed products today at the Home Depot and Lowe's. Offers available March 9th through 22nd at select U.S. stores, while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See store for exact offers.
92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later.
92% because of a bike?
Not just bikes. We also make treadmills and rowers.
Oh, let me guess, for elite athletes only, right?
Nope. It doesn't matter if you're an avid exerciser or new to working out. Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try Peloton bikes, tread, or row risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.